The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526 Inner Alchemy. The Meletsi anaconda that attacked Xia Xingchen and others had a big hole in its abdomen, blown open by bombs explosives. Xia and others hit the wound hard and finally killed the Meletsi anaconda. At this time, Carlos reminded Xia Xingchen and others that this Meletsi anaconda might have an inner elixir. So Carlos, what is the use of this inner elixir? It has a great effect. According to the records of the Mank people, the inner elixir is a sacred product for warriors. It can heal internal injuries, prolong life, and even increase the power of several decades. It can be made into medicine and has the effect of resurrecting the dead. It is said that with the help of some special medicinal materials and exercises, it can even give humans the supernatural powers that only some monsters have. In short, it is a very good thing. Then what are you still standing there for, brothers? Grab your weapons and cut up the body, Xia Xingchen ordered. 2 engineering mechas drove over quickly and took out more than a dozen large barrels from the mechas and Xia Xingchen's personal space, which were full of blood. The crowd also tore off the entire snakeskin, which was about 70 to 80 meters in area. Xia and Miyamoto Kenichi took a lot of effort to take out a heart the size of a bull's head. In the heart of the Meletsi anaconda, they took out a red bead. This bead was the size of an orange, with a hard and smooth surface, and a texture very similar to red agate, and it smelled faintly fishy. Everyone was very excited. This was the legendary inner elixir. They gathered together and studied it for a long time, and even scanned it with an instrument, but they didn't know what the composition of this thing was, and how to use it. According to Carlos, there must be a record in the source of faith, but now Xia Xingchen's mental power level has not reached the authority to unlock it. So far, his mental power level has been stagnant. Xia Xingchen is thinking about whether he should concentrate on improving his mental level. Xia Xingchen held the inner elixir in his left hand. At this time, the lucky cat that had been hiding during the battle came out from somewhere. It hugged Xia Xingchen's legs, looked up at the inner elixir in Xia Xingchen's hand, and meowed. Good job, little guy. Thanks to your alarm, we can find the danger in advance. Xia Xingchen's words came from the heart. If it weren't for the lucky cat's early warning, they would have been very likely to run into the mouth of the Meletsi anaconda, and it would have been difficult to escape unscathed. He grabbed the lucky cat with his right hand and put it on his left shoulder. This was already the lucky cat's official seat, and Xia Xingchen had become its official mount these days. Who knew that the lucky cat didn't stay on Xia Xingchen's shoulder honestly, but stepped on his arm to Xia Xingchen's left hand, looking at the inner elixir of the Meletsi anaconda with interest. Then, a shocking scene happened. The lucky cat used its claws to gently fiddle with the inner elixir, then opened its mouth and ate the entire inner elixir of the Meletsi anaconda with a few crunches, just like eating a pear. Everyone, including Xia Xingchen, was stunned. No one thought of stopping the lucky cat until it had eaten the entire inner elixir. Oh my god, what happened? How did it eat something so hard? Oh my god, cat, inner elixir. At this moment, the muscles on Xia's face were twitching. Xia Xingchen, I have to tell you that inner elixir is a priceless thing. All large mercenary platforms have tasks to purchase inner elixir. As for the price of inner elixir, the lowest bid is 500 billion star coins. 500 billion star coins. How many spaceships and mechas can be purchased? And they are just eaten like this. Xia often browsed the websites of the Mercenary Association and the Killer Guild in order to get tasks, and he knew the market prices of these items very well. Xia Xingchen felt even more pain in his heart at this moment, because that was 500 billion star coins. Xia Xingchen felt his heart was bleeding, and the stinky cat in front of him ate it in one bite. Now, this guy was shaking all over, lying on the ground, and fell asleep. Get up, stinky cat, don't play dead. Xia Xingchen picked up the dead skin behind the lucky cat's neck. Nina ran over distressed and snatched the lucky cat from Xia Xingchen's hand. Poor lucky cat, what happened? For a moment, the maternal radiance was overflowing here. Is it food poisoning? Alessa also came to join in the fun. In their opinion, the safety of a cat is much more important than 500 billion star coins. At this time, Brunswick came over and pointed at Russvan, who was sleeping soundly with a bulging belly next to him. Don't worry, it ate something with huge energy and entered hibernation, just like Russvan. When they absorb all the energy, they will naturally wake up, and their strength will be even higher. This has happened to Russ many times, and this cat is almost the same. Everyone then carefully observed the lucky cat and found that it was breathing evenly and sleeping so beautifully that even snot bubbles were coming out. Xia Xingchen was so angry that he couldn't speak. Keeley and Baum were also so angry that their eyes were blazing. That was 500 billion star coins, and they were gone just like that. At this time, Xia Xingchen's inside skill suddenly found that someone was approaching 200 meters away. Someone is coming. Everyone be alert. Everyone picked up their weapons and prepared for battle. A few minutes later, several people came out from the bushes opposite. The leader was a young man with a gloomy expression. Xia Xingchen looked at this person and felt that he was familiar. Carlos soon saw a picture in his mind, and Xia Xingchen finally knew who the familiar person was. Behind him was a giant man nearly 2 meters and 5 meters tall, a hunchbacked old man who looked to be in his 50s, a woman wearing a very revealing leather jacket, a weirdo wrapped in a dark robe and wearing sunglasses, and a half-body prosthetic man whose half-body was made of machines. The young man walked up to Xia Xingchen and the others, and he first saw the body of the Mechas anaconda, and his eyes lit up. He waved his hand, and the half-body prosthetic man walked forward and scanned the body of the Mechas anaconda with his right half of the machine eye. Report to the Lord. This is an adult male Mechas anaconda. It should be more than 50,000 years old, and it has been dead for no more than an hour, and it was just killed. I guess it should have an inner elixir. Good job, Chainsaw, the young man said, and came to Xia Xingchen and the others. Listen to me, hand over the inner elixir of the Mechas anaconda honestly, and I will let you die a little more easily. Otherwise, I will make your life worse than death. Chapter 527, Meeting the Chosen One again. Xia Xingchen and others finally destroyed the Mechas anaconda and found an inner elixir from its body. Before everyone could be happy, the inner elixir was eaten by the lucky cat as a snack. Xia Xingchen and others were very depressed. At this time, 5 people came from the opposite side. They didn't look kind, especially the young man in the lead, who spoke very rudely. Listen to me, hand over the inner elixir of the Mechas anaconda honestly, and I will let you die a little more easily. Otherwise, I will make you live a life worse than death. These people should be from the chosen organization. Carlos said something in everyone's headphones. The 3 Brunswick brothers and sisters widened their eyes. However, Xia Xingchen, Miyamoto Kenichi and Keela looked at each other and suddenly laughed. You want our lives? You are really afraid of flickering your tongue? Are all you chosen organizations so arrogant and arrogant? Xia Xingchen said very well. The young man was shocked, and his snake-like eyes emitted a cold light. Who are you? Why do you know the secrets of the organization? Xia Xingchen sneered in his heart. It seems that Carlos's analysis is not wrong at all. This group of people are the members of the chosen organization. The young man opposite them is called Z, and he is the younger brother of the genetically modified human anaconda who was killed on the Gemini 5 satellite. But his strength is much stronger than his brother. Anaconda and Z both mean big snakes, and the 2 brothers have fused the genes of snakes. It's just that Z's fused genes are more successful and stronger than his brother's, and he has transformed many more times than his brother. But despite this, he will also be backfired when he transforms. But Z is much smarter than his brother. He asked around and finally got a message that, if he can get the inner elixir of snake animals and refine it, he can become more powerful and completely get rid of the trouble of snake gene backlash. So Z brought several of his men to Mechas and began to hunt Mechas anacondas. However, not every Mechas anaconda can produce inner elixir. The number of Mechas anacondas that can produce inner elixir is very rare, and most of them hide in places where few people go. Therefore, they hunted 7 or 8 Mechas anacondas and did not find the inner elixir. These people under Z are not ordinary people. This half-body mechanical prosthesis named Chainsaw is Z's loyal follower and a scientific madman who likes to use living creatures to do some inhumane experiments. It was he who discovered the traces of the Millet's anaconda's movements and led Z and others to follow the trail. The muscular man who is nearly 2.5 meters tall is named Kui. He is a genetic fusion of humans and a bull. He is extremely powerful and brave in battle, but he has a bit of a bad temper. The short old man, named Jun, is also a genetically modified person, but the gene he fused is a ferocious alligator turtle. He is actually only in his 20s, and it is the gene of the alligator turtle that makes him so old. The woman in the revealing leather clothes has a 2-meter long whip in her hand. Her name is Succubus, and she is the mistress of Z. This woman is also less than 30 years old, full of coquettish aura, which can make all male animals crazy. Mecha is a natural superpower. Her superpower is charm. This skill is similar to Brunswick's fear aura. However, her charm effect is very simple, and it seems to have the function of seducing men. The monster in the cloak is a vampire named An. He is much stronger than that bat. These 4 people are loyal to Z. Moreover, the 4 of them have done countless bad things with Z and killed countless people. When they saw Xia Xingchen and others, they only thought about how to kill them. Hearing Xia Xingchen reveal their details at once, Z suddenly became nervous, put away his contemptuous eyes, and looked at the people in front of him carefully. He believed that these people knew about the chosen organization, because they had no doubts when they heard the name, and they did not show the, or they should have for the chosen organization. The chosen organization is still very mysterious. Those who know about this organization are either companions or enemies. Obviously, these people in front of him don't look like companions at all. Xia Xingchen looked at Z and others coldly. Not only do I know about the chosen organization, I also know that there is a fool named Nap, who should be your brother or something like that. Hearing this, Z's pupils suddenly shrank. His brother went to Gemini to perform a mission, but lost contact when a riot broke out on Gemini. There is no news. Now it seems that it is very likely related to these people in front of him. What did you do to my brother? So that idiot is your brother. We really didn't do anything to him. He overdrew his life, causing the gene chain in his body to break and turn into a pool of dirty blood. Oh, by the way, there was also a leopard that was beaten to death, and another vampire was burned to death by us with a laser. Keeler looked at the in front of him with a teasing look and said something that made his eyes spit fire. Are you from the Holy Temple? Xia Xingchen's eyes lit up when he heard this. He knew the purpose of the Holy Temple, and they would intervene in all events that threaten human survival. This chosen organization is undoubtedly anti-human, and they are a group of lunatics. If the Holy Temple intervened, everything would be easy. We are not from the Holy Temple, and there is no need for the Holy Temple to take action to deal with you lunatics. We just don't like those guys, so we took the opportunity to eliminate harm for the people. It seems that we are really destined to be together. How do you want to deal with us? Transform? At this time, the cloaked stood up. Z, leave them to me. Oh, and you don't want to attack ants? What's going on today? Is the black hole starting to glow? Z also became interested. You know, the sun's strength is about the same as his, and he is the only one in the team that he needs to discuss with. And pointed to a mecha not far away. There is an evolving vampire over there. I want his original blood. After Xia Xingchen and others defeated the Amazon Anaconda, they encountered another team of people from the Chosen organization. And the leader of this team of Chosen, Z, is the younger brother of the Anaconda they killed on Gemini. Chapter 528, Battle Against Vampires. The was soon angered by Xia Xingchen and Keeler's teasing words. At this time, the vampire came out and pointed his sharp claws at a mecha not far away. There is a vampire that is evolving. I want his original blood. It turned out that it was Rusfin. He had just drunk the blood of the Millet's anaconda. At this time, his body was like a big water tank, and he fell into a deep sleep again. The blood energy in the blood of the Millet's anaconda was hundreds of times more than that of the pig beast. After drinking so much, the quantitative change finally led to a qualitative change, and he began to evolve, and could feel the power of the original blood, especially the evolving vampire. The power of the original blood in it was definitely a great tonic for other vampires. Generally speaking, vampires are strictly prohibited from killing each other to obtain original blood. As long as someone does this, they will be hunted down by the entire vampire group. But there is no doubt that the vampires in the chosen organization are all crazy. Crazy people will not abide by morality and rules. Miyamoto Kenichi was eager to try. Master, give it to me. I have more experience. Keeler glared. You have killed one. Give this to me. I also have experience. Keeler's words were true. He fought with Rusvan for several hours almost every day, and his experience was indeed rich. And looked at the people in front of him coldly. I'm in a hurry, ants. You all come together. As he said, he rushed towards Xia Xingchen and others. Sword drawing technique. Soul cutting. The knife flashed, and Miyamoto Kenichi's long sword slashed towards him like lightning. The bright knife light cut the man in front of him in half. Not dead. Be careful. Xia Xingchen activated the inside skill, and In's every move was under his control. Just now, at the moment, when Miyamoto Kenichi drew his knife, and accelerated violently, and his body had already rushed out, while Miyamoto Kenichi's sword energy only cut its cloak in half. Xia Xingchen was a little dignified. Its speed was too fast. This speed showed that In was more difficult to deal with than that bat or even Rusvan. What Xia Xingchen didn't know was that this move just now also surprised In. If it hadn't used its vampire talent skill, Swift Shadow. This is an ability it acquired when it evolved, which can instantly increase its speed by 3 times. It lasts for 2 seconds each time, but it can only use this skill twice a day. It underestimated the enemy just now. When it reacted, Miyamoto Kenichi's long sword was already in front of it. This sword was extremely fast and powerful. It had no choice but to use Swift Shadow. It rushed into the crowd at once. But In was very cunning. It rushed into the crowd with a purpose. Nina and Elisa were his targets. He wanted to kidnap one of them to make Xia Xingchen and others afraid to act rashly, and it would cause panic among Xia Xingchen and others. This is also human nature. People always pick the soft persimmons to squeeze. But what he didn't know was that these two women were not easy to mess with. It rushed to Nina first and stretched out its evil claws. However, when it was 1 meter away from Nina, a flash of lightning suddenly appeared on Nina's body and hit In. And had never expected this move, and was hit by the lightning, and flew 4 or 5 meters away, falling heavily to the ground. The power of lightning is very strong, and it also has a strong killing effect on the virus in the body of vampires. This time it was hit hard. The most important problem is that the whole body is numb, and I don't know how many viruses were killed by the electric shock. After Nina had a relationship with Xia Xingchen, her mental power level also increased rapidly, and her mental power ability also grew. The move just now is called Lightning Shield, which is a passive skill. When Nina is attacked, the electric power on her body will feel threatened, and automatically release electric energy to attack the enemy. Seeing this, Miyamoto Kenji flashed to the front. Sword drawing technique. Soul cutting. This time he drew another sword. Feeling the danger coming, and was forced to use the Swift Shadow skill again, and dodged the knife with a flash and roll, and then rushed into the crowd again with a kick of his legs. This time, its claws reached out to Alessa. This little girl looked cute and harmless, so they took her for the operation. However, seeing this scene, Xia Xingchen and others all smiled, and no one went up to help. They knew that this little girl was the most dangerous person among them. Facing the aggressive vampire, the little girl's face seemed to be very scared, and was secretly happy in his heart. He liked to see the expression of fear and despair of his prey very much. Moreover, for vampires, the blood of virgins was the most delicious. The little girl in front of him would become a delicacy in his mouth. Seeing the desperate little girl stretched out her left hand, as if she wanted to resist, but the next moment, An's expression was like seeing a ghost. An invisible force emanated from the little girl's left hand. This force covered a large area and covered its entire body. In that instant, its body collapsed. The body of a vampire is composed of vampire viruses, and their essence is a very simple material existence. Elisa's ability interrupted the molecular chain of the virus, and the vampire's body collapsed instantly, leaving only a human head flying forward under the action of inertia. Elisa dodged with a smile on her lips. She was a terrifying witch, not a powerless little girl. The face of the human head was still wearing a very terrified expression, and the mouth was wide open. A goose egg could be stuffed in it, just like seeing a ghost. And was not dead yet. That was because his original blood was hidden in the head. If the original blood is not destroyed, it is difficult for the vampire to die. At this time, Miyamoto Ken exerted force with one foot and dodged to the head that was still in midair. Two sword style. Split. The knife flashed, and In's head was chopped into 4 pieces. At this time, the original blood hidden in the head was exposed. For the original blood, sunlight is the most terrifying thing. The few original bloods were instantly evaporated by the sunlight. Shocked, or extremely shocked. A very powerful vampire in the chosen organization was defeated by a seemingly powerless little girl in one move. The psychology of Z and others was greatly stimulated. Chapter 529 Turtle Man. They knew N's ability very well. Who were these people in front of them? Killing N was as easy as killing a stink bug. Z was shaken. He planned to leave first and then gather people to take revenge. These people killed his brother and N. This was a deep hatred that would never end. Boy, you are lucky today. You wait for me. If you offend us, the chosen one will not let you go. Let's go. Z originally planned to scare Xia Xingchen and the others with harsh words. Oh, you just want to run away after pretending to be tough, right? There are so many cheap things. Since you are here, you can leave your life behind. Xia Xingchen said and waved his hand, and everyone launched an attack. They all knew that these crazy people in the Chosen One organization must be eradicated and all evidence must be destroyed. Otherwise it would leave great trouble. Miyamoto Jianai stopped Z. Xia Xingchen faced Yuan. Yugo faced Kui. And Brunswick faced Succubus. Only the half-body mechanical prosthetic man stood far away. He didn't look like he could fight very well, nor did he look like he could run fast. The others were also highly alert, afraid that they would run away, transform, kill them all. Seeing the situation in front of him, he knew that he couldn't end it peacefully, so he had to fight desperately. Changes appeared on his body, and the whole surface of his body was covered with scales, and sharp claws grew on his hands. The claws glowed green, which should be poisonous. At this time, the chainsaw took off a pair of weapons from behind, and threw them to the snake. Miyamoto Kenji came out with a sword. The snake monster uses weapons, which is exactly what I like. Give it to me. At this time, the giant Kui next to him also transformed, and long brown hair grew on his body. His height actually grew to more than 3 meters tall, and his muscles swelled up like a balloon, bursting his muscles. Two horns more than 1 meter long grew on his head, like two sharp knives. Give this to me. I like it. Yugo was happy to see the beast. He returned the Ningfeng sword in his hand to Xia Xingchen, picked up the short spear and round shield, and faced Kui. That woman has psychic powers. I will deal with her. Brunswick took the initiative to stand up. All along, these partners have shown strong abilities, but only Brunswick has no chance to show them. The recent opponents are either beasts or monsters, and he has no power to use them. Now there is finally such an opponent suitable for him, the Dread Demon. Xia Xingchen nodded. Then leave this old man to me. He pointed at Yuan. Boy, neither of us uses weapons. Do you dare? Yuan looked at Xia Xingchen with disdain. Xia Xingchen looked at the little old man in front of him. He was not tall, his skin was wrinkled, and his back was a little hunched. He looked harmless. But Xia Xingchen knew that this must be a pig pretending to be a tiger. Such people are actually more dangerous. As long as I kill you, take it. Xia Xingchen shook his 2 swords and stabbed them straight into Yuan's chest. Yuan put his hands behind his back and thrust his chest forward. With a clang, the indestructible Ningfeng sword was blocked. Xia Xingchen was shocked, as if he had seen a ghost. He quickly withdrew the Ningfeng sword in his hand and slashed at Yuan's shoulder. Sparks flew, but Yuan stood there with a smile, as if nothing had happened. Things like swords and knives are useless to me, Yuan said slowly, and stretched out his right hand. Its right hand turned into a crocodile-like claw, and bounced on Xia Xingchen's Ningfeng sword. A huge force came, and Xia Xingchen's sword slipped out of his hand. What kind of monster is this? Xia Xingchen's eyes almost fell out. His right hand was so sore and numb at the moment that he almost lost consciousness. It's the Antahelian alligator turtle, Carlos reminded. Soon, a piece of information appeared in Xia Xingchen's mind. Antahelia, which belongs to the Southern Administrative District of the Galactic Empire, is a very special planet in the entire Milky Way. Its volume is almost 10 times that of the Earth, and its gravity reaches an astonishing 8.9 grams. It is impossible to survive on such a planet without the help of special equipment. However, in such a harsh environment, a complete ecosystem has been formed. This is regarded as a miracle of life by humans. Affected by the super strong gravity, the height of the tallest trees on this planet does not exceed 3 meters, and this is the result after tens of thousands of years of growth. Moreover, the body density of all animals and plants on the planet Antahelia is very high, and only in this way can they support their own weight. The Antahelia snapping turtle is the creature at the top of the food chain on this planet. However, the largest Antahelia snapping turtle on this planet is only about 1.5 meters long. This creature, which looks very similar to the snapping turtle on Earth, has a very high body density, especially its hard tortoise shell, which even lasers cannot penetrate. If a mecha steps on the tortoise shell, it cannot break the tortoise shell, but can only step it into the ground. The Antahelia snapping turtle is an omnivore. Meat, plants and even hardwood are its delicacies. Its teeth are very sharp and can bite ordinary steel. The most surprising thing about the Antahelia snapping turtle is its amazing strength. The Antahelia snapping turtle can pull objects that are thousands of times heavier than its body weight. In terms of combat power alone, there are very few animals in the entire galaxy that can match it. The millet's anaconda may be one of the few. Carlos judged from some of the physical characteristics of the turtle that the turtle was likely to have transplanted the genes of the Antahelia snapping turtle. While Xia Xingchen was distracted, the turtle's claw had already grabbed over, and Xia Xingchen dodged it easily. It seems that the turtle is not invincible. He has the same characteristics as the Antahelia snapping turtle, that is, slow, very slow. But this slowness is only relative. Whenever Xia Xingchen wanted to pick up the Ningfeng sword, Yuan would follow closely and use attacks to stop Xia Xingchen's actions. Xia Xingchen was furious and was about to take out the giant sword from the portable mecha space. But soon, he controlled himself and forced himself to calm down. Both Colonel Bercy and the old gentleman Kinren taught him that he must stay calm when encountering things, and no matter how powerful the opponent is, there will be flaws. As long as you stay calm and carefully look for the opponent's flaws, you will have a chance to win. Thinking of this, Xia Xingchen stood still and no longer thought about how to get the Ningfeng sword back. He put his fists at his waist, bent his knees, and took the starting posture of a set of martial arts. Haha, interesting. You can't hurt me with a sword, so use your fists and feet. Come on, I want to see what you can do. Just as he finished speaking, Xia Xingchen's fist had already hit his face. Yuan looked contemptuous and raised his hand to block. With a bang, a violent sonic boom occurred at the intersection of their fists. Yuan's face changed completely. He felt the severe pain and powerful force coming from his hands. This is impossible. Chapter 530, Hammer breaks the tortoise shell. Xia Xingchen fought with the genetically modified human turtle, which was modified by the genes of the Antahelian giant turtle, but he found that the Ningfeng sword could not break the opponent's defense at all. Even the sword was knocked out of his hand by the turtle's huge force. In desperation, Xia Xingchen could only fight the turtle with his bare hands. He was forced to use his own fighting skills, splitting the air and breaking the city hammer. The first punch shocked the turtle. This explosive power was enough to hurt it. Although it already had the genes of the Antahelian giant turtle, it still had half of the human genes in its body. If it was a real giant turtle here, even a martial arts master like Kinren would not be able to kill it with his bare hands. But the turtle in front of him was just a semi-finished product. Xia Xingchen's punch was enough to hurt it. At this moment, Xia Xingchen's other punch also arrived, and the turtle was forced to turn around and actually took the punch with its back. Bang, there was another loud noise, and the clothes on the turtle were torn to pieces by the airwave. Xia Xingchen saw that behind it was a tortoise shell full of serrations. If it weren't for the fact that the air-splitting battering ram concentrated a large amount of air on the arms and fists, this move of Xia Xingchen would have been enough to cripple his left hand. Hehe. The turtle laughed strangely. Boy, I'll stand here and let you hit me. I guarantee that, even if you tire yourself to death, you can't hurt me. Then you give it a try, old turtle. Xia Xingchen said. His blood and energy flowed all over his body. He waved his arms, raised his fists, and smashed at the turtle. The turtle did not dare to neglect it at all. It tried very hard to parry, and when it really couldn't dodge, it turned around and used the tortoise shell behind it to block Xia Xingchen's fist. Although the tortoise shell on its back was very strong, it was not a real turtle after all, and it didn't dare to show its back to its opponent. After throwing 20 or 30 punches in a row, the turtle felt that the intervals between each of Xia Xingchen's moves were getting bigger and bigger, and the power of the moves was getting smaller and smaller. He was secretly happy in his heart. He knew that this was the result of declining physical strength. Such a powerful move would also consume a lot of energy for the user. But he didn't know that Xia Xingchen did this for a purpose. According to his physical strength, he could completely handle 400 or 500 punches at a time, not to mention that he was protected by mental power. The reason for doing this is, first, to paralyze the opponent, so that the turtle would no longer use the tortoise shell on its back to block. Another reason is to accumulate power. The most powerful move in the air breaking ram requires a long time to charge. Every time Xia Xingchen punches, his body will accumulate a bit of strength. The more punches he throws, the more powerful the last move will be. However, this move is useless, because the enemy will not let you punch so many times so easily, or the opponent will be dead before the power is fully charged. Now the old turtle in front of him will neither run away nor pose a fatal threat to Xia Xingchen, and he is very resistant to beating, so Xia Xingchen remembered this move. So his fists continued to hit him like raindrops. At the same time, a battle beside him had already ended. Brunswick's opponent is the succubus, the woman with mental power. Her mental power level has reached level 29, and she has awakened the mental power ability, Charm. She was discovered and cultivated by the Chosen One. Because of her skill characteristics, she cannot be made into a divine power potion, so she was cultivated as a servant. The succubus's seductive aura can make male creatures who approach her infatuated, and then they relax their vigilance or even lose their minds, slowly approach her, and be killed by her dagger. She has killed thousands of men with this trick. Looking at Brunswick, the succubus used the same trick again, emitting seductive mental fluctuations all over her body. The man in front of her seemed to have been tricked. He put down his clenched fist, staring at her with lustful eyes. The succubus's eyes were like electric discharges, hooking Brunswick's soul. Soon, Brunswick was in front of the succubus. The succubus's right hand stretched out to her right thigh, and a sharp dagger was tied to the smooth thigh. What she was going to do next was to gently scratch Brunswick's neck with the dagger, and take his life. However, at this moment, Brunswick's body suddenly bounced up like a spring, and his right hand with alloy brass knuckles punched the succubus chin. The succubus body was immediately knocked more than 5 meters away, and a big hole was torn on her entire chin. She fainted in midair. Her body fell heavily to the ground, and began to twitch constantly, which was a manifestation of severe damage to the nervous system. Brunswick took a step forward and kicked her. With a click, this was the sound of the cervical vertebra being kicked off, and the succubus's body stopped moving. Brunswick took out a tissue from his pocket, wiped the blood off the brass knuckles, and then walked in the opposite direction of the main force, cutting off the retreat of the Chosen Ones. Good job, third brother. Elissa jumped up excitedly, and Brunswick gave her a charming smile. Xia Xingchen threw more than 100 punches, and the turtle was also trying hard to block with his arms. However, even though the turtle had a super strong ability to resist blows, his arms were extremely sore. But it felt that Xia Xingchen did not have much strength left, so when it really couldn't dodge, the turtle directly used its breastplate to block. Although the shell on its chest was not as defensive as its back, it was more than enough to resist Xia Xingchen's attack. Xia Xingchen felt that he had almost accumulated enough strength. If he continued, his physical fitness would be affected, and he would not be able to fully exert the power of this move. Now the turtle had been paralyzed by him, and as long as it did not use its back armor, Xia Xingchen was still confident. At this moment, Xia Xingchen accelerated the circulation of ki and blood in his body, and all his strength was concentrated on his right fist. In order to increase the power, Xia Xingchen also mobilized all his mental power, and concentrated it in his punch. He swung his right fist and hit the turtle's head, splitting air and battering ram. splitting air and battering ram. The turtle habitually raised his hands to block, but Xia Xingchen suddenly lowered his right fist and hit it in the chest. One of the characteristics of the splitting air and battering ram is that it strikes last but arrives first. In this way, the habit of some opponents to predict the attack method based on the action is completely invalid. Facing Xia Xingchen's change of tactics, the turtle did not panic, but slightly bent his legs and straightened his chest. Just now, its breastplate was hit by Xia Xingchen's punches more than 10 times, and it was not hurt at all. It was very confident in the defense of its breastplate. Bang! This sound was very dull, like a sandbag being smashed to the ground, and Xia Xingchen was shocked by the rebound force and stepped back many steps. He retracted his right fist, and there were already bruises on his fist. Despite the protection of mental power and skills, Xia Xingchen was still slightly injured. The power of this blow was too great, and the turtle stood there motionless, so the backlash force caused Xia Xingchen's right hand ligament to be strained, and there was bruise on the surface of his fist. At this time, the turtle stood there straight, its rough face full of wrinkles, and its expression could not be seen at all. It stood there blankly for more than 10 seconds. The scene became weird. Chapter 531. Vigorous Vitality. Xia Xingchen used all his strength to attack the strongest move of the air-breaking siege hammer, but the turtle did not react after being hit, and stood still. Instead, Xia Xingchen was injured in the ligament of his right arm by the huge recoil force. Suddenly, the turtle opened its parrot-like beak, and kept spitting out things. Those were fragments of internal organs. Xia Xingchen's last attack was more than 50 times more powerful than his ordinary attack. Although the turtle's breastplate was also extremely strong and resisted this attack without breaking, the huge force of this attack was comparable to a punch thrown by a fighting mecha. The impact force directly passed through the hard breastplate and was transmitted to its internal organs. After all, internal organs are internal organs. Even if they are very strong, they cannot withstand such an impact. This is like many people who have been in a car accident. On the surface, they are intact or only slightly injured, but their brains have been shattered into tofu brain. However, the flesh of this thing is really tenacious. Even though it has lost its vital signs, its body is still standing there straight. Xia Xingchen was also secretly shocked. If such things were mass-produced, it would be a big trouble. What Xia Xingchen didn't know was that the chosen organization had carried out more than 5,000 gene fusion experiments between humans and Antahelian snapping turtles, but only the one with a turtle was successful. In addition, in order to do the experiment, they killed hundreds of Antahelian snapping turtles, causing this endangered animal population to face a great threat. Antahelia is now under strict surveillance by the Galactic Empire government. It is almost impossible to obtain snapping turtles from Antahelia. Xia Xingchen turned around, picked up the Ningfeng sword with his left hand, returned to the team, and asked Keela to help him simply fix his right arm. At this moment, bursts of thunderous shouts came from the forest a few hundred meters away. This sound has actually never stopped since the beginning of their battle. This is a battle between Kui and Yugo. Kui is also a genetically modified creature. His body is fused with a creature called Kui in IU. Kinyu was originally a creature in myths and legends on Earth. Kinyu is shaped like an ox, has 1 foot, no horns on its head, is grey in color, and will bring wind and rain when it enters or leaves the water. It can make thunderous sounds, and is accompanied by the light of the sun and moon. 4,000 years ago, a strange book on Earth, classic of mountains and seas, Great Wilderness East Classic, described Kinyu as, it is shaped like an ox, has a grey body and no horns, 1 foot, and will bring wind and rain when it enters or leaves the water. Its light is like the sun and the moon, and its sound is like thunder. Its name is Kinyu. But more ancient books say that Kinyu is a snake-like monster. Kui is a spirit, like a dragon with 1 foot. The book describes the creature Kinyu in detail. There is a mountain in the East China Sea, called Liubo Mountain. This mountain is about 7,000 miles away from the coast. There is a beast on the mountain, shaped like an ox, with a grey body, no horns, and only 1 foot. Every time it appears, there will be a storm. It shines with light, like sunlight and moonlight, and its roar is as deafening as thunder. This beast is called Kui. Later, Huangdi got this beast, made a drum with its skin, and used the bones of the thunder beast as drumsticks. The drum sound resounded 500 miles away, shocking the enemy soldiers and conquering the world. After entering the space age, humans discovered a vibrant planet in the southern part of the Eastern Administrative Region. 90% of the area of this planet is covered by oceans. It is precisely because of this that the atmospheric circulation activities on this planet are very frequent. From space, the entire planet looks like turbulent waves flowing, so it is named Liubarxing. There is an animal on Liubarxing that looks very similar to the yak on Earth, but it is more than 5 meters tall and can reach 10 meters in length. The horns on its head are several meters long. This animal is extremely powerful and has a bad temper. It can hit an aircraft mecha. Once it is angered, nothing can stop it. And the call of Kuiniu is very loud. The thunder that humans can hear can generally reach 90 to 130 decibels, while the cry of this animal can reach 120 decibels. So biologists borrowed the name from the legend and named them Kuiniu. Kuiniu, a powerful creature, is naturally the focus of the crazy people of the Chosen Ones. And Kui became the only one who survived from tens of thousands of experimenters. The Chosen Ones had discovered such a rule in countless human experiments: the more powerful the creature, the lower the success rate of gene fusion, but the monster after the successful fusion is also more powerful. So they focused their attention on these powerful rare birds and animals. This time they came to Millet's star. In addition to obtaining the inner elixir of the Amazonian anaconda, collecting a large number of Amazonian anaconda gene samples is also one of their main purposes. The chainsaw is the main operator of this matter. After Kui transformed, his height reached more than 3 meters and thick hair grew on his body. He rushed towards Wugo. Wugo stabbed it with an alloy short spear, but was hit by its horn. The short spear made of alloy steel pipe was bent and flew out of his hand. Wugo was also knocked more than 10 meters away. Wugo flew in the air and lost his balance. Seeing Kui with red eyes lowered his head, his horn hit him. Wugo twisted his waist in the air, adjusted his body posture, and smashed Kui's horn with the shield in his left arm. With the help of the huge impact force, Wugo flew into the air and flew to a tree next to him. Seeing this, Kui turned his head and hit the tree. Wugo was on the tree, wrapped his legs around the trunk, took off the alloy shield in his left hand, aimed at Kui's head, and smashed it like a frisbee. Kui raised his head suddenly while running, and the tip of the horn was just aimed at the center of the shield. With a bang, the horn pierced through the shield. It was as if the shield was made of paper. Kui didn't seem to be affected at all, and continued to rush towards the tree, where Wugo was with the shield. With a crack, the hard tree as thick as a bucket was broken in half. You should know that the gravity of Millet's is 2.9 g, and the density of trees on this planet is also very high. The hardness of the big tree where Wugo stayed is comparable to the iron tree on Earth, but it was broken by this bull like a stick. Before the tree fell to the ground, Wugo fell to the ground with a somersault to relieve the impact. You should know that it is not an easy thing to jump down from a height of more than 5 meters on a planet with a high gravity like Millet's. Before he stood up from the ground, Kui rushed over again. Chapter 532, Battle against the Kuiniu monster. Wugo fought with Kui, who had been genetically modified by Kuiniu. Kui was extremely powerful and charged forward with its horns. Wugo's shield was like paper in front of it. Helpless, Wugo did not dare to confront it head on. Even if it swept him head on, he would be crushed to pieces. Even if the skulls of the Terami people were extremely hard, they did not dare to confront such a monster. If they really collided like that, their heads might be fine, but their necks might be broken. Wugo took out 2 daggers, which were the only weapons he could rely on. He tried to face Kui's head-on attack, and at the moment when the two were about to collide, he jumped aside and attacked other parts of Kui's body with the daggers. This is easy to say, but it is very difficult and dangerous to do. Kui's speed of attack was as fast as a car at a speed of 70 or 80 kilometers per hour. If you were to come into contact with it head on, if you were a little slower and were dragged by it a little bit, you would be buried under its iron hoof. If he dodged earlier, Kui could change the direction of his attack, and the danger would be even greater. Wu Go tried several times, but his dagger scratched Kui's body without causing any damage to it. His hair was like steel wire. Wu Go was ruthless, and he used the broken gold technique with more force. However, there was a problem with the broken gold technique, which was that the user needed a certain amount of time to accumulate power, and there were also special requirements for the angle of the dagger's attack. In order to meet such requirements, Wu Go had to wait longer, leaving him with less reaction time and fewer angles to dodge. In desperation, Wu Go could only risk injury, dodge, attack, and then roll and crawl, over and over again. Although the broken gold technique was powerful, it only left a few shallow blood marks on Kui's body. In the blink of an eye, 15 minutes had passed, and the two of them had already fought hundreds of meters away. A large number of trees were knocked down in the forest, opening up a crooked road. Although the time was not long, Wu Go went all out in every move. Although the Terami people have amazing endurance, if they do this for a long time, their physical strength and attention will sooner or later fail. If they are careless, their lives will be in danger. Unfortunately, Kinyu is an animal with extremely strong endurance. They can run at a speed of more than 60 km per hour for more than 10 hours. When Kinyu are in heat, they can even fight for days and nights until one of them dies. This is an animal that does not know what fatigue is. And Kui obviously also has the super endurance of Kinyu. In just 15 minutes, it showed no signs of physical decline. If it continues like this for a short time, Wu Go will most likely die of exhaustion. Although the situation is very critical, Wu Go did not lose his mind. The characteristics of the Terami people, always keeping calm in battle, saved him. While dodging Kui's attack, Wu Go was thinking about countermeasures. He did not want his companions to help, because Kui was very dangerous, and leading it to his companions might cause serious harm to them. Moreover, Wu Go didn't know the battle situation of others. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration came to his mind. This time, after dodging Kui's attack, Wu Go did not prepare to attack it again, but turned and ran. He quickly distanced himself, put the dagger in his right hand into the scabbard on his thigh, and touched his waist. There was a polymer water bag the size of an orange. Wu Go felt a little distressed. This thing was not easy to get. He wanted to study it, but he had to use it before it was warm. There was nothing he could do about it. After all, life safety was the most important. While Wu Go was running, he listened to the cry of the Kinyu monster behind him, silently calculated the distance of Kinyu in his heart, then turned around and threw out the water bag in his hand and quickly jumped 3 or 4 meters to the side. Kinyu was originally more than 10 meters away from Wu Go. Suddenly, he saw something flying in the distance and instinctively raised his head and hit it with his horns. The polymer water bag was originally very strong, and ordinary people would not damage it, even if they tore or squeezed it. However, the horns of the Kinyu were very sharp, and coupled with the high speed, the horns penetrated the water bag, and the liquid inside splashed out, soaking the Kinyu. The green viscous liquid instantly entered the wound on the Kinyu's body that Wu Go had cut, and entered its blood at a very fast speed. A small amount of liquid also entered the Kinyu's eyes. Kui only felt a pain in his eyes, and suddenly he could not see anything. The huge pain made him very angry, and he rushed forward at a faster speed. At this time, Wu Go had dodged and hid behind him. The Kinyu monster ran forward for another 2 minutes, and suddenly howled. The sound was as high as 150 decibels, louder than thunder, and then fell to the ground instantly, bleeding from all 7 orifices, and died on the spot. The bag thrown by Wu Go was filled with the snake venom of the Millet's anaconda. Snake venom is a liquid secreted from the venom gland of venomous snakes. The main component is toxic protein, accounting for about 90% to 95% of the dry weight. There are about 20 kinds of enzymes and toxins. In addition, it also contains some small molecule peptides, amino acids, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleosides, biogenic amines and metal ions. The composition of snake venom is very complex, and the toxicity, pharmacology and toxicological effects of different snake venoms are unique. There are 4 main types of snake venom toxins on the earth. The first type is blood circulation toxins, such as vipirs, belly snakes, bamboo leaf green snakes, 5-step snakes, etc. The bitten area swells rapidly, hardens, bleeds, and is extremely painful. The skin is purple-black, and skin necrosis and lymph node enlargement often occur. After 6 to 8 hours, it can spread to the head, neck, limbs and waist and back. The sick dog trembles, the body temperature rises, the heart beats faster, breathing is difficult, and it cannot stand. Nose bleeding, hematuria, convulsions. If it is not effectively treated within 4 hours after the bite, it will eventually die of heart failure or shock. The second type is neurotoxins, including toxins secreted by snakes such as the Bungarus bungarus and the Bungarus nigroficium. After the bite, local symptoms are not obvious, bleeding is less, and redness, swelling, and fever are mild. However, acute systemic symptoms appear within a few hours after the injury. The patient is restless, groaning in pain, trembling muscles all over the body, foaming at the mouth, swallowing difficulties, breathing difficulties, and finally lying on the ground, convulsing all over, and respiratory muscle paralysis and death. The third type of toxin is a mixed toxin. The venom of cobras and king cobras belongs to mixed toxins. The local wound is red, swollen, hot, painful, and may be necrotic. After the toxin is absorbed, the systemic symptoms are severe and complex, including both neurological symptoms and damage caused by blood circulation toxins. Finally, all die of suffocation or cardiac failure. The fourth type of toxin is a cytotoxin. Sea snakes, which are close relatives of cobras, are cytotoxins. The main part of the human body that is damaged by sea snake venom is the voluntary muscles, not the nervous system. Sea snake bites are painless, and the onset of venom has a latent period. There are no obvious symptoms of poisoning within 30 minutes or even 3 hours after being bitten by a sea snake, but this is very dangerous and can easily make people careless. In fact, sea snake venom is absorbed by the human body very quickly. The first symptoms after poisoning are muscle weakness, soreness, drooping eyelids, and jaw stiffness, which are a bit like the symptoms of tetanus. At the same time, the heart and kidneys will also be seriously damaged. People who are bitten may die within a few hours to a few days. Most sea snakes only hurt people when they are harassed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533, Violent Snake Venom. The Kinyu monster, which was madly chasing Wugo, was killed on the spot when the venom of the Meletsi anaconda thrown by Wugo entered its blood through its wounds and eyes. As the pinnacle creature of snake evolution in the entire galaxy, the Meletsi anaconda also has snake venom. The venom of the Meletsi anaconda is also a mixed toxin, but it is a super mixed toxin. It almost combines the 4 toxins of all snakes on Earth, and it is also corrosive. If it drops on human skin, it can corrode the skin instantly. However, the Meletsi anaconda is so powerful that it has no natural enemies on the Meletsi star, so its venom sac and fangs have degenerated, just like the human appendix. Only an orange-sized venom sac is left, hidden at the root of its thickest tooth. But this tooth is not a venomous fang, and the tooth is not hollow, but solid. If the Meletsi anaconda encounters a prey that is large enough to escape its giant mouth, once this tooth breaks, the venom in the venom sac will be released and enter the prey's body to help it kill the prey. However, there seems to be no such creature on Meletsi star. This is the conclusion drawn by scientists after dissecting several Meletsi anacondas. Just when Xia Xingchen and his team were dissecting the Meletsi anaconda, Xia Xingchen remembered the information Carlos gave him. It happened that Hugo was interested in this aspect. The Terami people are also very good at using various venoms. Their venom comes from plants and animals. Xia Xingchen and Hugo took a lot of effort to carefully take out the venom sac. The outside of the venom sac is covered with a layer of green membrane, just like the human bladder. Carlos told Xia Xingchen that the use of polymer water bags can safely preserve snake venom. So Xia Xingchen filled the snake venom in a polymer water bag and gave it to Hugo, intending to go back and study it and prepare to use it in future battles. The result came in handy soon. The venom of this Meletsi anaconda is very terrible. The venom that entered Kui's eyes destroyed its corneal tissue within seconds, and both eyes turned into two pools of pus. Part of the venom that entered its wounds flowed into its nervous system along its blood, and soon all its nerves died, and the electrical signals used for nerve conduction were also cut off. All its internal organs, including the heart, brain and lungs, went on strike. On the other hand, the snake venom quickly destroyed the platelets in the body of the Kinyu monster. It caused its blood to flow out along all the capillaries and wounds, causing the symptoms of bleeding from all 7 orifices. Moreover, the venom near the wound also destroyed the body tissue of the Kinyu monster with the blood circulation. Under the invasion of this terrible venom, it would be a miracle if it could still survive. Yugo looked at the body of the Kinyu monster from a distance, hesitated for 3 seconds, and gave up the idea of getting closer to take a look. He is now afraid. If the polymer water bag on his waist was scratched and torn in the fierce battle just now, the broken body on the ground would be his fate. Miyamoto Kenichi's fighting spirit has reached its peak. He is very excited. The in front of him is an opponent that he can go all out. After being loyal to Xia Xingchen, he often fought with Xia Xingchen and Wu Jie, and Miyamoto Kenichi's swordsmanship has made great progress. Now, he finally met an opponent who can make him go all out, is different from his brother, is obsessed with the power of his body, but is different. He is a warrior who is good at martial arts. Even after genetic modification, he did not give up his martial arts. On the contrary, he vigorously studied how to better integrate his martial arts with his body. His weapon is a pair of moon blades. Moon blades are a special weapon. The moon blade used by is about 1.8 meters long and bow-shaped. In the middle of the bow is the handle, and opposite the handle are 2 sharp 30 cm long short blades. The main body of the moon blade is 2 huge thick-bladed scimitars. Unlike ordinary scimitars, the front and back of the moon blade are bladed. This makes this weapon extremely fierce, and any part of it can be used to attack the enemy. But the moon blade also has many disadvantages. The first is that it is too heavy and loses flexibility. The weight of moon blade is about 60 kilograms. This weight is simply a burden to swing. It is heavier than a hammer, and its flexibility can be imagined. Another point is that both its front and back are bladed. Although this increases its power, it also makes it easy for the user to be accidentally injured by it. However, for the transformed Xia, this is not a problem. The snake gene that Xia received is different from the snake gene of his brother. The snake gene in Xia is more powerful. This snake gene makes Xia several times stronger than ordinary people, and the scales on his body are harder than ordinary steel armor. Moreover, its agility has not decreased at all, and its body shape has not changed much after the transformation. The 2 shortcomings of the moon blade have no adverse effects on it. On the contrary, it can play a greater role after its transformation. Another difference between the moon blade of the Xia is that its moon blade looks faintly green. This is snake venom, which is squeezed out of its body after each transformation. Although it will lose some vitality every time it squeezes out the snake venom, it takes a long time to recover, but Xia thinks it is all worth it. Its snake venom is very powerful and can kill people instantly, which is better than most synthetic poisons. Miyamoto Kenichi really met his opponent today. The opposite Xia, who had transformed, was originally a martial arts master. In addition, the heavy moon blade in his hand was truly at ease in Xia's hands. 2-sword style. Double flame / Miyamoto Kenichi raised both swords and chopped from top to bottom. He put all his strength into both arms for this slash. However, Xia just smiled contemptuously. With his left hand raised, the moon blade easily blocked the 2 swords. Sparks flew everywhere, and a deep cut was made on Kenichi Miyamoto's double swords. He was shocked. You have to know that Kenichi Miyamoto brought back thousands of years of precious swords from Earth. It can be seen that the collision force was great. What's more terrible is that Kenichi Miyamoto's body was almost shaken and lost his balance. At this moment, the magpie moved, and the moon blade in its right hand slashed towards Kenichi Miyamoto's neck. It was a martial arts master. How could it easily give up such a good flaw? Chapter 534 Miyamoto Kenichi is poisoned. This frightened Kenichi Miyamoto so much that his hair stood up. If he was cut by the thick blade, he would definitely die. so he waved his arms and used his fighting skills in midair. Double sword style. Falling petals. The sword energy from Kenichi Miyamoto's two swords flew up into the air like a pair of wings, and the two swords took turns to hit the moon blade that was cutting in. The huge impact of the swords actually knocked Kenichi Miyamoto's body into the air. At the moment when the moon blade in his right hand just cut through Kenichi Miyamoto's clothes and was about to pierce his body, Miyamoto jumped into the air and dodged this move. His body was more than 2 meters away from the ground. He adjusted his posture in midair and cut forward and downward with his two swords. Two sword style. Eagle strike the sky. This time, the sword force was wrapped in the gravity of Kenichi Miyamoto's flying down, especially on the 2.9 G Millet star. This move was even more powerful. Facing this powerful move, Z took a step back very calmly, swung his arms, and the moon blade in his right hand, drew a crescent behind him, and slammed down hard on the double swords from bottom to top. Sparks flew again, and 2 more cuts appeared on the double swords. This time, Miyamoto Kenichi's body was knocked out 5 or 6 meters in midair, and he almost fell on his back. At this time, Z took a few steps forward, swung the moon blades in his arms, and slashed at Miyamoto Kenichi who had not yet landed. Moon blade. Spinning dragon unparalleled. The spinning moon blades reflected the sunlight, and silver blades of light spun, and slashed at Miyamoto Kenichi. This time, Miyamoto Kenichi opened his arms, and swung the double swords in his hands again. The double swords were as powerful as the rotors of a helicopter. Double sword flow. Tornado hurricane. Under the effect of the rising air currents caused by this combat skill, Miyamoto Kenichi's body flew more than 4 meters high, barely avoiding Z's fatal blow. If it were on Earth, he could hide more calmly, at least he could rise to a height of 6 or 7 meters, but this is Millet's, the gravity is too strong, he can only get so high from the ground. In order to prevent the snake from attacking again, Miyamoto Kenichi swung his two swords again, double sword style. Firebird. Giant. The huge firebird shot towards the snake in midair, and the snake crossed the 2 moon blades in front of him, and stretched out his arms. With a loud bang, the snake was engulfed by the fireball. Miyamoto Kenichi took the opportunity to land and gasped. Just now, he turned around in midair, and released a large amount of his internal energy, which consumed a lot of his energy. The impact of the giant firebird made the snake stagger, but that was all. The shock wave of the flame only made it feel very uncomfortable, and raised its body temperature. The temperature is closely related to the state of the snake. Snakes are cold-blooded animals, and their body temperature changes with the changes in the ambient temperature. When the temperature is low, the snake's body temperature is low, the energy is insufficient, the activity is weak, and the reaction is slow, so it is okay to get close. In extreme cases, when the temperature is too low, such as in severe winter, it will lose its activity and enter a hibernation state. At this time, you can catch it in your hand and play with it, but it will not move. At this time, the safe distance is 0. As the temperature rises, the snake's body temperature gradually rises, the energy is replenished, the activity is enhanced, the reaction is more agile, and the attack radius is increased, so you need to stay away from the snake. Therefore, in early spring and late autumn, it is okay to get close to the snake. In summer, stay away from the snake. During the day, the snake is slow in the morning and evening, so you can get close. At noon, the snake is agile, so stay away. However, in summer, there is enough temperature even in the morning and evening to keep the snake agile, and some snakes prefer to move and feed in the morning and evening, so the morning and evening in summer are the active periods for snakes, and you must pay close attention to prevention. The firebird caused the body temperature of the scorpion to rise by several degrees instantly, and the tyrannical gene in its body began to become active, and the yellow eyes also revealed a terrible look. It actively swung the moon blade and rushed towards Miyamoto Kenichi, and the two of them fought fiercely. Because the power of the oyster was too great, and the scales on its body were almost invulnerable to swords and guns, even if it was cut by a knife, it would only produce a shallow white mark. Miyamoto Kenichi had to go all out in every move and squeeze out every bit of strength in his body. Only in this way could it be possible to cause damage to the oyster. 10 minutes passed, and Miyamoto Kenichi was a little exhausted. The opponent was invulnerable to swords and guns, had infinite power, and his martial arts were not weak. He was really the most headache-inducing opponent he had ever encountered. The oyster didn't want to fight anymore. After all, Xia Xingchen and his team were outnumbered, and had to get away as soon as possible. Thinking of this, the oyster increased the speed and power of the attack. The moon blade in his hand hit Miyamoto Kenichi one after another. Miyamoto Kenichi could only use his double swords to resist. For Miyamoto Kenichi, this moon blade was just like a blunt instrument, like a big iron hammer, which made him helpless. With the fierce collision of weapons, Miyamoto Kenichi's double swords, especially the long sword in his right hand, finally couldn't bear the heavy load. After a collision, they finally couldn't bear the heavy load, and broke into pieces. Miyamoto Kenichi didn't expect the weapon to be damaged. He was cut on his right arm by the moon blade without paying attention. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough to avoid the tragic fate of having his right arm cut off. However, at this time, he felt that the wound on his right arm had begun to numb, and this numbness was rapidly spreading to other parts of his body. You have been poisoned by my snake venom. You can choose to be killed by my moon blade, or continue to dodge, accelerate the spread of venom, and die from my venom. But if you can die from my venom, it will be your honor. The voice of the was hoarse, and the voice gave people goosebumps. At this time, Keeley and Brunswick, who had already resolved the battle, quickly rushed forward to block the way of the Miyamoto. You go to the side first, leave this monster to us, Keeley said. No, let me do it, this is my fight. Miyamoto Kenichi was stubborn at this time, and refused to retreat. For a swordsman, it is better to die in glory than to live in disgrace. Miyamoto Kenichi planned to die on the battlefield. In the life and death struggle with the long sword in Miyamoto Kenichi's right hand was broken, causing his right arm to be scratched by the moon blade and poisoned by the snake. Now his right arm has completely lost consciousness, and the snake venom is still spreading in his body. Chapter 535, Easily Stomped to Death. Keeley and Brunswick wanted to fight against Xia on behalf of Kenichi Miyamoto, but Kenichi Miyamoto got angry and planned to fight to the death. Xia Xingchen couldn't stand it anymore. Kenichi Miyamoto, you bastard, I told you to come back. Your life is mine, and you are not allowed to die without my consent. This. Kenichi Miyamoto was about to retort, but the samurai's creed restrained him. He had already pledged allegiance to Xia Xingchen, so the master's order was above his life and death. Yes, master. Kenichi Miyamoto agreed. He looked down at the long sword in his left hand again. Although it had not broken, it was covered with fine cracks, and could no longer be used. He could only throw the sword on the ground with regret, and walk towards Xia Xingchen. He was very unwilling, and didn't want to quit the battle. Seeing Keeley holding a dagger and Brunswick with brass knuckles in his fist, Xia laughed again. Two more people are here to die. You two can't even break my defense. Come on, I'm in a hurry. The attitude of the was extremely arrogant. It was confident that it could kill all the people with the power of itself. Oh no, a monster. At this time, a thunderous sound came from the sky. After careful identification, there were two. Xia Xingchen's heart suddenly had a bottom. This was a sonic boom of mecha. When the speed of an object is close to the speed of sound, there will be a strong resistance, causing the object to vibrate strongly, and the speed to decay. This phenomenon is commonly known as the sound barrier. When breaking through the sound barrier, the compression of the air by the object itself cannot be transmitted quickly, and gradually accumulates on the windward side of the object, to form a shock wave surface. The acoustic energy is highly concentrated on the shock wave surface. When these energies reach people's ears, people will feel a short and extremely strong explosion, which is called a sonic boom. What appeared in their ears now was the sonic boom of the mecha. The thrusters of today's mechas are no longer like the rocket thrusters of the past that make terrible noises when fuel explodes. The sonic boom and the sound of airflow stirring are the source of the noise of mechas. A few seconds later, two mechas appeared in the sky. The oyster was immediately shocked, although there was no human expression on its face. At this time, Carlos's voice came from the headset. Leave this thing to me. All of you retreat. Brunswick and Keeley quickly dodged and jumped back. Carlos pulled out the mecha using Feng sword mounted on the back of the Revenge Knight mecha and threw it from a height of more than 50 meters to the oyster standing on the ground. When Xia Xingchen and his team encountered the Millet's anaconda, Carlos controlled the evil thought to surface and controlled the Revenge Knight mecha and the Thor's Wing mecha to come to support at high speed. Even Carlos could only control these two mechas to do some of the simplest and most basic actions. But this was enough to deal with a oyster. The oyster was also dumbfounded. It knew the chainsaw watching the battle on the side very well. After fighting for such a long time, the chainsaw must have notified the garrison of Millets. When he first heard the sonic boom, he was very happy, thinking that Xia Xingchen and his men were dead. Who knew that Xia Xingchen and his men's mechas would come? He stood there in a daze, watching a mecha alloy sword that was nearly 5 meters long and weighed more than 10 tons being thrown down from a height of more than 80 meters. What is the concept of more than 80 meters? That is the height of nearly 30 floors. A screw dropped from this height can cause a concussion to the people below. Not to mention an alloy sword weighing dozens of tons. What's funny is that he raised the moon blade in his hand and crossed it high above his head, trying to block the sword. You can imagine a thick channel steel more than 1 meter long falling from more than 80 meters, and below is a ridiculous crayfish holding up its claws in an attempt to fight against fate. Puff the mecha used the Ningfeng sword to directly penetrate the ground and deeply sank, leaving only the hilt outside. And he had long been smashed into blood. You dare to destroy my most successful work, I will let you all die. Chainsaw is a very prestigious scientist in the chosen organization. It can be said that the few people he led, except for Xia, all the other genetically modified people were created by him. He is not a combatant, but he and Xia have equal status in this team. Now seeing Xia and others were annihilated, he was also angry. Chainsaw knew very well that these people in front of him were not easy to mess with, and they were all ruthless. It seemed a luxury to want to survive today. Chainsaw stretched out his mechanical left arm, which had a circular chainsaw disc on it. He liked to use this thing to cut organisms, so he was named Chainsaw. He waved the chainsaw and rushed towards Keeley and others. At this time, the mechanical electronic eyes of Chainsaw flickered strangely. He planned to rush into the crowd and self-destruct with a few enemies. Even if he died, he would drag a few people with him. However, before his body moved 1 meter away, an iron pillar fell from the sky. This was Xia Xingchen's Revenge Knight mech, which stepped on the chainsaw. Sparks flashed under the feet of the Revenge Knight mech, and there was a slight explosion under the feet, and the chainsaw became sawdust. Then, the Thor's Wing mech also landed next to it. "Thank you, Carlos," Xia Xingchen said. "Xingchen, your troubles are not over yet. There are 50 mechas approaching about 400 kilometers away. They should be the Millet Star Garrison. They have a total of 50 mechas, all of which are Jerome manuscript type. I suggest you get rid of them first," Carlos reminded. "Okay, Nina, let's go." Xia Xingchen waved his hand, motioning Nina to get on the mecha quickly. Nina grabbed the alloy steel cable extending from the cockpit without saying a word and was pulled up by the electric motor. Xia Xingchen also got on the mecha. Although his right hand was injured, his left hand was still usable. What's more, the mecha has a mental control system, and the injury to his right hand is not serious and will not affect his ability to drive the mecha to fight. Xia Xingchen and Nina got on their respective mechas, ready to meet the enemy. At this moment, Miyamoto Ken, who was standing aside, suddenly softened and fell to the ground with a plop. Chapter 536. Powerful Snake Venom. "Miyamoto, what's wrong with you?" Brunswick shouted loudly. Everyone gathered around. "Don't panic, I'll take a look. Xingchen and Nina go to meet the enemy first. I'll check it out first." Keeley waved his hand at Xia Xingchen's mecha. As a killer, Keeley has a deep understanding of the human body structure. In addition, they often perform tasks outside and face the risk of injury. It is very dangerous for a killer to go to the hospital for treatment, so first aid has become a required skill that an excellent killer must master. Among these people, although everyone has received some battlefield first aid training, only Keeley is really proficient. He laid Kenichi Miyamoto flat on the ground, asked Baum to get the first aid kit from the engineering mecha, and began to check Kenichi Miyamoto's injuries. At this time, Kenichi Miyamoto's face was pale, and there was a slight layer of green, which was very scary. His head was covered with dense beads of sweat, and his lips were blue. Keela found the wound on his right hand, so he cut off his sleeve with scissors, and was shocked when he saw it. It turned out that Kenichi Miyamoto had a finger-long wound on the outside of his forearm. The wound didn't look deep, but it was covered with a layer of paste. Keela frowned. He knew that the paste was the remaining human fat after the tissue was decomposed. Fat is still difficult to be completely decomposed. Now 2/3 of Kenichi Miyamoto's right arm has turned into a creepy black. The nails of his right hand have turned purple, and his whole body is slowly turning green. Keela quickly sampled the contents of Kenichi Miyamoto's wound, and put the collected venom samples into a portable detector. In addition, he also drew out a tube of blood for further testing. Then, he took out the tourniquet and tied it at the base of Kenichi Miyamoto's right arm, then took out a small electric saw from the medicine box and cut from the part of Kenichi Miyamoto's right arm that had not yet completely turned black, cutting off all the rotten and blackened parts of the entire right arm. These tissues have been completely destroyed by the snake venom, and it is impossible to cure them. There is a large amount of original venom on them. After removing the arm, he quickly cleaned the wound, stopped bleeding and bandaged Miyamoto Kenichi. Then, in order to prevent the remaining toxins from damaging his body, Keela injected him with 2 SSB medicines. This is a very high-end medicine. Generally, only senior military generals are qualified to use SSP medicine when they are in danger of life. This medicine can reduce the blood circulation and metabolism in the human body to an extremely low level, but it will not cause life-threatening and serious harm to the human body. There are many times on the battlefield where seriously injured soldiers must be sent to the biological treatment chamber or even the frozen refrigerator in time for treatment or temporary preservation of vital signs. However, in some places with harsh environments, there are no such equipment conditions, so only such life-saving medicines can be used. Therefore, SSP medicines are also called quick freezing medicines. Now Miyamoto Kenichi's heartbeat has dropped to less than 10 beats per minute, and he has completely lost consciousness. However, the spread of the color of the poison on his body seems to have almost stopped. At this time, Carlos sent a message. Keela, this is a complex snake venom. There is no formula or antidote now. We can only send him to the low temperature freezer of the spacecraft as soon as possible. Let him fall asleep, and then we need to find a famous doctor as soon as possible. However, Miyamoto Kenichi has been poisoned, and the toxin has caused serious damage to his body functions. Even if he is frozen, if the time is too long, we cannot guarantee that he will definitely come back to life after thawing. But the only thing we are sure of is that, if he is thawed within a month, he may still come back to life. In other words, we must find a doctor who can treat him this month. Keela fell into silence. He was helpless, and he knew that what Carlos said was the only way. Xia Xingchen also heard it, but he had no time to take care of it now. The 50 mechas in front of him were the biggest trouble. The Millet Star Garrison has only one base here, with a squadron of 50 mechas. In fact, they have 60 mechas, but they only have 50 mecha divisions, and the other 10 mechas are several engineering mechas and several spare mechas. This time, all the available troops of the Millet's garrison were dispatched. The garrison here is usually very idle. Their only task is to deal with some poachers who use mechas to hunt animals on Millets on a large scale. However, Millets is vast and has no orbital synchronous satellites. They can only be dispatched when they receive orders from their superiors. When Emperor Nicholas was in seclusion, he instructed Regent Andre to give some small favors to the chosen organization so that they could serve as cannon fodder for the Northern Empire. So when the chosen organization proposed to hunt some animals for a search, Regent Andre readily agreed. A colonel was also sent to help them coordinate with the local governments of various planets to arrange reception. The chosen organization was very satisfied with Andre's performance. This time, Chainsaw, Shrimp and others came to the base of the Millet's garrison under the leadership of a colonel of the Northern Empire. The colonel reported to the highest commander Mazmov, who was actually only a major, because the status of Millets was too unimportant. It was just a nature reserve. The more than 100 of them are all the permanent residents. Major Matsmov was told that, as long as he served Chainsaw and his future would be bright. So with the help of the local garrison, he and Chainsaw easily found the place where Millet's anacondas often appeared. They hunted a large number of Millet's anacondas. Since the chosen ones were all very lonely and violent, they didn't want so many people to follow them. So the commander of the garrison said that he could move freely, and if necessary, the garrison would be there at any time. Just after they encountered it, Chainsaw felt that the group of people in front of him didn't seem to be easy to mess with, so he quietly called for support. After receiving this news, all the mechas of the Millet's garrison were dispatched. Chapter 537 Anti-Mecha Missile. The Revenge Knight and Thor's wings flew towards the 50 attacking mechas in midair. 200 kilometers away, 50 in number. Optical influence system activated. It's Jerome manuscript mechas, 10 of which are equipped with ground attack cluster missiles. Carlos reported the type of mechas of the opponent in the system. Jerome A-type mechas are cheap and good at flying, so they are widely equipped in the garrison of the Northern Empire. Especially for a planet like Millet's, which is vast, but remote and poor. Jerome A-type mechas are most suitable for such remote planets. However, facing the harsh gravity environment of Millet's, Jerome A-type mechas are difficult to adapt to, and 5 of them crashed within a month at the beginning. At that time, Prince Nicholas was very angry, and ordered Europa Space Industries Group to make rectifications. So Europa Space Industries Group modified the Jerome A-type mechas used on Millet's. First of all, a magnetic levitation device was installed on the back of the mecha. With this device, the mecha can almost offset nearly half of the gravity of Millet's. In addition, the wings behind the mecha were enlarged, lengthened, and widened, and 2 small thrusters were added to both ends of the wings. This solved the problem of the mecha's flight in a strong gravity environment. In addition, the main support structure of the mecha was also strengthened. The modification of the mecha, especially the modification in such a strong gravity environment, is not as simple as simply adding a few devices and thrusters. If the support structure is not strengthened, it is very likely that the thruster will be pulled off the mecha when the thruster is running at full power. Such a modified mecha is named Jerome manuscript mecha. Among them, M means Millet's, and S means strengthening. Facing the 50 Jerome manuscript mechas coming in front of him, Xia Xingchen seemed very calm. In front of a mecha master with a level close to B, these guys in front of him are ants. Now, even if Xia Xingchen is given a ranger mecha, he has the confidence to kill these 50 people in front of him. Keela immediately organized the people on the ground to hide in the woods and try to spread out from the mechas. The mechas are too big a target. Nina, come with me and meet the enemy 50 kilometers away from here. Your mission is to intercept the mechas and missiles that have escaped. Pay attention to the curvature of the laser when fighting in the atmosphere. Understood, Xingchen. Nina replied, and the 2 mechas rushed in the direction of the Millet's Star Garrison. Major Matsmov on the opposite side is the highest commander of the Millet's Star Garrison. He has been here for more than 10 years. Although he can often plunder a little money from poachers, it is pitifully little. The key is that there is no place to spend the money. Major Matsmov is the only D-class mecha master among these soldiers. He also has his own Diaralf mecha, but it can't be used on this damn Millet's Star. He can only honestly follow the big-headed soldiers to use the Jerome manuscript mecha. This time, several people from the chosen organization came. Although Major Matsmov didn't know what they were doing, he knew that they were very powerful. He decided to seize this opportunity that would make him successful, or at least help him leave Millet's. Suddenly, an orange-yellow laser shot from the opposite side, brushing against a Jerome manuscript mecha next to him. Fortunately, it didn't hit him. This was Xia Xingchen adjusting the curvature of the laser rifle. But this shot scared Major Matsmov. He woke up from his dream of getting promoted and getting rich. He was even more stunned when he saw the moving speed of the 2 mechas on the opposite side on the radar. Fire! Everyone fire! Shoot them down! Major Matsmov shouted loudly. Suddenly, 50 Jerome manuscript mechas in the air, hovered in the air at the same time, and formed a battle formation. If so many missiles are launched, and the flight path of the missiles is not missed, it will cause accidental injuries. The scene of 80 large long-range anti-mech missiles firing in unison was very spectacular, attacking Xia Xingchen and Nina's mechas like a meteor shower. Looking at the optical image on the screen, Xia Xingchen frowned. What is this? 8005 large anti-mech missile? Xia Xingchen asked. Before Carlos could answer, Nin laughed first. Fool, how much is a 8005? Is it paid for by the Northern Empire? Xia Xingchen was stunned, as if it was indeed the case. Xingchen, that's the NUMS 805 large anti-mech missile. Carlos explained, and then a piece of information about the NUMS 805 large anti-mech missile was transmitted. Xia Xingchen suddenly realized it. The UMS 8005 large anti-mech missile is the main anti-mech missile currently used by the Galactic Empire military. It is 3.6 meters long and 0.98 meters in diameter. This large anti-mech missile produced by the Tang Dynasty Group has a maximum range of 120 kilometers and a maximum speed of 2.1 Mach. Its guidance chip has a strong anti-interference ability, and even has a certain speed change and track change ability, which can effectively avoid the interception of mecha firepower. The most amazing thing about the UMS 8005 large anti-mecha missile is its warhead, which is a composite warhead with 5 sub-warheads. The middle warhead is an armor-piercing warhead that can penetrate the armor of most mechas. The other 4 warheads are fragmentation-type high-explosive killing warheads. In this way, the 4 sub-warheads can produce a violent explosion, making the missile's killing area reach 15 meters. It can also cause serious damage to mechas, and to a certain extent, it can be used as a ground-to-ground missile. It is officially, because of its excellent performance, that it is used as a standard weapon equipped in large quantities by the Galactic Empire Army. However, its only disadvantage is that it is too expensive. The cost of each UMS 8005 large anti-mecha missile has reached an astonishing 15 million star coins. 2 or 3 missiles are equivalent to the cost of an ordinary military mecha. Since the Northern Empire still has a large number of Jerome type mechas, it must be equipped with a large number of anti-mecha missiles to form combat effectiveness. However, the cost of the UMS 8005 large anti-mech missile was obviously beyond their reach. So Northern Heavy Industries began to conduct research based on the UMS 8005 large anti-mech missile, made a lot of castrations on the performance, and finally brought down the cost. This castrated version of the large anti-mech missile was named NUMS 805. Its external dimensions and appearance details are almost identical to those of the UMS 8005 large anti-mech missile. If the same paint is used, even professionals will find it difficult to distinguish. The Tang Dynasty Group was furious about this, and launched a protracted patent war with Northern Heavy Industries. However, Northern Heavy Industries was backed by Nicholas and the then Northern Administrative Region government, so the case was left unresolved in the end. The maximum attack range of NUMS 805 is only 60 kilometers, which is half less than that of the UMS 8005 large anti-mech missile. Its cruising speed is only Mach 1.3, and its maximum attack speed is Mach 1.6. The guidance device of the NUMS 805 missile is relatively simple, unable to perform serpentine maneuvers, and has only 2 speed changes, but it has strong anti-interference capabilities. The biggest difference between the 2 missiles is the warhead. The NUMS 805 large anti-mech missile does not adopt a complex sub-warhead design, but uses a solid armor-piercing alloy steel cone. It relies on the inertia of the final acceleration of the anti-mech missile to kill. The outside of the steel cone is filled with a huge amount of high explosives and lethal fragments, which can cause a killing area of about 8 square meters. Although the performance is much worse, the cost of NUMS 805 is only 6.5 million star coins. This price is affordable for the Northern Empire. Coupled with the extensive use of Jerome-type mechas, NUMS 805 has become the most suitable anti-mech missile for the Northern Empire. Chapter 538 An easy battle. At a distance of dozens of kilometers, the missiles in the sky arrived in just a dozen seconds. Xia Xingchen raised the flowing fire mech rifle and adjusted it to the plasma cannon mode, with the scattering rate adjusted to the maximum. A ray of orange-yellow plasma with a diameter of nearly 20 meters instantly crossed the sky. In just 3 seconds, the plasma swept across the sky. Most of the missiles were swept by the plasma and became fireworks in the sky. Not only that, but 7 Jerome manuscript mechas were swept by the plasma and melted into molten iron. At the same time, 4 electric bolts with a diameter of 1 meter suddenly shot out from the Thor's wing mech and quickly flew hundreds of meters away. At this time, the dozen or so surviving missiles plunged into a large net formed by the electric balls. Kyla, the remaining missiles were soon surrounded by electric lights, and several of them were immediately detonated. The other missiles lost power and fell to the ground under the influence of the gravity of Malet's star. At this time, the pants of Major Maximov on the opposite side were already wet. Although he was a soldier, the deadly plasma passed by his mecha more than 10 meters away, and the psychological destruction was fatal. All the mechas of the Northern Empire were frozen on the spot. They still didn't know what was going on, and the anti-mecha missile salvo, the biggest reliance of the Jerome manuscript mecha, had been destroyed. The enemy in front of them was too terrible. At this time, Major Maximov realized that the 2 mechas in front of him seemed to be nuclear-powered mechas. Now, they seemed to have no way out. Moreover, these 2 mechas came from the direction where the signals from the chainsaw were sent, and the chainsaw could not be contacted now. In other words, these guests were in great danger. In just one attack, 7 mechas were destroyed. The 40 NUMS 805s and the entire base were also lost. If he ran back in disgrace now, he would definitely go to the military court. With such a big loss, he could not escape the fate of being shot and confiscated. Thinking of this, Major Maximov gritted his teeth and said, "Shoot them all. Make sure to kill them all. Otherwise none of us will have a good end." The Jerome manuscript mechas that had already launched missiles raised their mecha laser rifles and fired, and the remaining nearly 10 mechas that had not yet launched missiles fired ground-to-ground missiles. Although they were ground-to-ground missiles, they also had a certain ability to cause damage to mechas, but compared with special anti-mecha missiles, they were too easy to dodge. However, the Millet Star garrison was now in chaos. Xia Xingchen adjusted the flowing fire mecha rifle in his hand to the rapid fire state, and then stepped on the accelerator pedal hard. The mecha rushed out in a very irregular curve, and then dozens of lasers covered the sky, where the Revenge Knight mecha was just now. The muzzle of the flowing fire mecha rifle was rapidly spraying lasers, and the double-mounted laser heavy artillery on Xia Xingchen's shoulders and back was also pouring ammunition. This was not enough. Xia Xingchen activated the Dragoon system, and 6 floating guns soared into the sky, launching a fierce attack on the Jerome manuscript mecha group in front of him. Nina was also performing irregular maneuvers in the distance, dodging the sparse lasers. Although her Thor Wings mecha was very powerful, after the first battle in which Nina stole the show, Xia Xingchen asked Nina to get used to using maneuvers to dodge shooting on the battlefield in the future instead of relying too much on the powerful defense of the mecha. Nina obeyed Xia Xingchen's words, and she could also understand Xia Xingchen's painstaking efforts. She dodged while being on guard. Major Maximov used all his strength to dodge an orange-yellow laser, but before he could celebrate his escape from death, another green laser arrived. Major Maximov didn't know who killed him until he died. 30 seconds later, the whole world was quiet. "Xingchen, you are too greedy. Why don't you leave one for me?" Nina was a little unhappy. Every time she boarded the mecha, she wanted to kill everyone, but today she was so angry that she had no place to vent. "Next time, we have something to do." "Then what should we do today?" Nina insisted. "Don't make a fuss. How about this? You go to my room at night, and I'll let Alessa sleep alone." Xia Xingchen and Nina drove the mecha back together. On the way back, Carlos and Keela reported to Xia Xingchen in detail about Miyamoto Kenichi's situation. "Carlos, have you found a doctor or expert who is good at treating snake venom or poison injuries within a month's flight?" "There is indeed one, and he is a doctor who is very good at treating snake bites and poison injuries. He is not far away on the Novikova Star. His name is He Yunlin. He is 70 years old this year, and lives in Jiuli City on the Novikova Star." "Then let's go quickly. What are we waiting for?" Xia Xingchen was really a little anxious. Although Kenichi Miyamoto was nominally his servant, he was also a partner on the other hand, and Xia Xingchen was not used to abandoning his partners. There are just some problems. This Dr. He Yunlin has a very strange temper. He will treat patients he likes, even if you don't pay him, but he won't treat patients he doesn't like, even if you give him trillions of star coins or even point a gun at his head. He is such a person. Unfortunately, after he announced his retirement at the age of 60, he ruthlessly rejected most people who asked him to treat them, even if the patient died at his door. Carlos brought bad news. Xia Xingchen shook his head. We don't have much time left, and we can't care so much. We have to kidnap him to me. Carlos continued, Xingchen, I'm afraid it's not that easy. This Dr. He Yunlin has two good friends who are also neighbors. One of them is a martial arts master, and the other is an S-level mecha master. These three old men are inseparable all day long. It's not that no one has thought of this before, but the results are very miserable. Hey, do your best and leave the rest to fate. Due to the urgency of time, Xia Xingchen and Nina used their own mechas to transport all the personnel to the evil thought. Xia Xingchen, who was the last to leave, put the two engineering mechas and the things on them into the portable mecha space. Chapter 539 Arrival at Novikavo. Due to the strong gravity of Mechas, the small high-speed spacecraft, the evil mind, flew around Mechas twice and reached an altitude of more than 20,000 meters. After the speed had increased to a certain extent, the spacecraft adjusted its attitude, folded the wings of the spacecraft, pointed its head upward, and opened all the thrusters at the tail to the maximum power. After dozens of minutes, the evil mind finally got rid of the gravity of Mechas and returned to space. Julian and Brunswick stayed on the evil mind because Kenichi Miyamoto was still in the cryogenic freezer of the evil mind. Along the way, the atmosphere on the spacecraft was very solemn. Originally, their trip to Mechas was very successful, and Rusvan obtained a lot of blood, and he is still sleeping now. He is undergoing a very important advancement, and it seems that his strength will have a great improvement, and the blood reserves are enough for Rusvan to use for 2 or 3 years. The Mechas anaconda they killed this time has all good things on it, and it is also in short supply on the black market. But Kenichi Miyamoto's injury cast a shadow on all this. The engine power output of the two spacecrafts almost reached 98%. Carlos was not idle, and continued to look for a way to detoxify. But helplessly, he repeatedly scanned and studied the composition of the venom, and searched in Skynet, but there was no document that recorded the same composition of the venom. It was difficult to detoxify with ordinary methods. Xia Xingchen was dazed looking at the information about Dr. He Yunlin on the reader. This Dr. He Yunlin was a native of Novikavo, a Chinese. He was 75 years old this year. When Dr. He Yunlin was 15 years old, he was admitted to the Department of Toxicology of the Northern Medical University with excellent grades. 2 years later, he was admitted to the Royal Academy of Sciences of the Galactic Empire as a graduate student. After studying there for 5 years, he graduated with a doctorate and returned to the Northern Administrative Region to join the Toxic Research Group of the Siberian Star University. This toxic research group was secretly funded by Prince Nicholas behind the scenes. They traveled all over the galaxy, looking for various natural and synthetic poisons, studying how to maximize the effects of these poisons, and apply them to the military. Of course, if you want to use poison, you must develop relevant antidotes and treatment methods, otherwise it would not be fun if you are accidentally injured. Dr. He Yunlin has been in this research group for 20 years and has accumulated a lot of experience. Later, due to the leakage of poison, most of the people in this group died, and the laboratory was secretly sealed by the northern government. In order to continue his research, He Yunlin joined the mercenary group and began his adventurous career. He worked as a doctor in the mercenary group, adventured with the mercenary group, looking for poisons for research, and treated a large number of people injured by toxins, accumulating a lot of clinical experience. Dr. He Yunlin, 50, finally got tired of the days of wandering around. He returned to Novikavo to open a clinic, and got married and had children. Because he was top-notch in both theoretical and practical aspects of toxicology research, his clinic soon became famous. Especially in the Bakel star field, it is common for poachers who poach on various protected planets to be bitten by poisonous creatures. After they are injured, their only way out is Dr. He Yunlin. In addition, Dr. He Yunlin's clinic also sells a large number of antidotes. He has the antidotes for most poisons in the Bakel star region. However, Dr. He Yunlin's treatment fees and the prices of the antidotes are shockingly high, which makes the patients hate him. but there is no way. Some poisoning symptoms can only be cured by him. Dr. Xia Xingchen announced his retirement 10 years ago, when he was 65 years old. After his retirement, countless people still came to him for treatment, but he ruthlessly rejected them. Only a few patients with rare poisons would try to save them. Everything depends on his mood. Dr. Xia Xingchen's two neighbors are 73-year-old Popovich, an independent S-class mecha division from the Northern Empire. When he was young, he was in the same mercenary group as Xia Xingchen. And his other neighbor, Lester, a martial arts master from the Northern Empire, is 72 years old this year. The lives of these two people were saved by Dr. Xia Xingchen. The three of them agreed to retire together and live in Jiuli City on the Novikova Star. After Dr. Xia Xingchen retired, many people wanted to force him to treat poison wounds for the wounded, even at the cost of using force, but they were all ruthlessly killed by the two old neighbors. Now almost everyone knows his name as the Ruthless Poison Doctor, and people also know that this doctor has a bad temper and can't afford to offend. In recent years, no patients have gone to him for treatment. Xia Xingchen frowned on her face, and Nina looked at her worriedly. Keelan also posted tasks to treat poison wounds on major mercenary bounty platforms, but there were few responses. The main problem was that the distance was too far. 3 days later, a blue planet appeared in front of them. This was their destination, Novikovo. It is the largest planet in the southeast of the Baikal starfield, and in fact it is also an important town on the border. Due to the inconvenience of transportation, it is very closed here. Although the natural environment is good, there is no heavy industry and mineral resources. Because the folk customs here are tough, the people on the planet are eager to go out and see the outside world, so the most famous product of Novikovo was created mercenaries. The mercenaries of Novikovo are brave, good at fighting and adventurous, so they are very famous throughout the Galactic Empire. However, they do not seem to be very friendly to outsiders. Every time an outsider comes, he will be targeted, which is an opportunity to leave here. But it also means that some people from Novikovo may be killed. Originally, Novikovo only had a small space station with 40 or 50 berths for spaceships. But in the past year, the Northern Empire has built a large number of space facilities here. The newly expanded spaceport can dock thousands of spaceships for supplies at the same time. Xia Xingchen knew that this was the Northern Empire's preparation for the upcoming full-scale war. At that time, the Northern Empire's army can directly transfer strategically from the wormhole, and after replenishing here, they can attack the Eastern Administrative District of the Galactic Empire, which can save a lot of time. In the space not far away, a large military spaceport is also under intensive construction. This is the second fleet of the Northern Empire led by Admiral Vitus. They are building a frontier military base here. If they discover a wormhole connecting the Eastern Administrative District and the Baikal Star region, they must also be prepared to be attacked by the Galactic Empire. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 Guide Ivan. Xia Xingchen and his party finally arrived at Novikovo. Since the second fleet of the Northern Empire was stationed here, their evil thoughts had to go through layers of approval if they wanted to enter the atmosphere, and they had to land at a designated location. The Northern Empire military would also send someone to board the ship to guide the landing of the spacecraft. Xia Xingchen and his party had too many secrets, and it was impossible for them to let the soldiers of the Northern Empire board the spacecraft. Besides, the approval would take at least 10 days, and after various complex imaging, Xia Xingchen and his party could not wait. So they found a small repair shop with 2 berths as usual. Carlos's body, Julian, Charlene and Captain Bielsa were responsible for watching the house, and the vampire Rusvan had not woken up yet. The others brought a mobile refrigerator containing Kenichi Miyamoto, which looked like a large coffin with wheels, to the Novikovo spaceport to board the space shuttle to prepare for landing. The group of people with a conspicuous big coffin attracted the attention of passers-by on the road, and many people cast malicious eyes. The visa officer at the Novikovo spaceport rolled his eyes at the people in front of him. Their information was very complete. They were a group of adventurers who came to the Baikal administrative region to open up new routes. Now most of the people on the Novikavo space station are these people. What do you want to do in Novikavo? Let me tell you, this is not a place to have fun. The people here are tough, and as the saying goes, poor mountains and bad waters produce unruly people. I suggest you stay in the spaceport. Honestly, there are many places to have fun here. The fat visa officer said. It's like this, sir. We wanted to hunt for fun on the way here, but one of our companions was bitten by a poisonous snake and is in critical condition. We tried every means to find out that Dr. Hyunlin here in Novikavo is very good at treating poisonous injuries, so we came here to seek medical treatment. We plan to go to Jiuli City. Keela, who is responsible for external relations, said with a smile. The visa officer curled his lips and said, I advise you to carry it back. As far as I know, old man Hyunlin hasn't saved anyone for many years, and his fees will definitely make you bankrupt. Many people have sought medical treatment over the years, but almost none of them have succeeded. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't waste your time and money. Go back quickly. Besides, Jiuli City is on the other side of the planet, and it's not easy to get there. Novikavo doesn't have a complete transportation system. Keela handed over the completed entry application form, and the visa officer took it sullenly, but soon he grinned. His hand touched the banknotes on the back of the application form. That was 20,000 star coins, which is not a small amount in the Northern Empire. Okay, good luck to you. The fat visa officer immediately changed his face into a smile. Your spirit of sacrifice for your companions is touching. I suggest that you hire a guide, so that you will not be easily cheated by some unfriendly locals. You know, at least 1/3 of the outsiders who come here do not walk out alive. Almost none of the rest have not been cheated. Hiring a good guide will reduce your losses a lot. At this time Carlos said to Xia Xingchen, Xingchen, he is right. This place is too backward. Many things cannot be covered by the internet. My control here is very limited. So I suggest you do as he said, and find a guide. Xia Xingchen took over the conversation. Mr. Visa Officer, where can I find a guide? Do you have a suitable candidate? Don't worry, as long as he is a good guide, money is not a problem. Of course, you will also get benefits. The fat visa officer was very happy to hear this. One of my nephews is a professional guide for Novikavo. He is very familiar with the gangsters on Novikavo and charges a reasonable fee, 50,000 star coins a day. What do you think? Of course, the price is negotiable. Xia Xingchen stretched out his hand to stop him. Mr. Visa Officer, this price is very reasonable. Please help us contact your nephew. Okay, Mr. Xia Xingchen. The fat man said. Then he shouted at the personal terminal in his hand. Ivan, where are you? Come here. A big customer is here. The reason why he was so excited was that at least half of the 50,000 star coins per day guide fee would go into his pocket. Not long after, a thin, freckled blonde man came in front of everyone. The fat visa officer took him in his arms. This is my nephew Ivan. He is the best guide here. With him leading you, you will be much safer and save a lot of money. Saving money is the kingly way. Hello Ivan, I'm Axing, and this is my brother Rail. One of our companions was bitten by a poisonous snake and is in critical condition. We have to go to Jiuli Star to find Dr. Hyunlin to try our luck. Xia Xingchen shook hands with Ivan and said. Ivan thought for a moment. Mr. Crossing, I don't want to pour cold water on you, but I think my uncle should have told you what kind of people Dr. Hyunlin is. I can only take you there and bring you back safely. As for whether he will agree, it depends on your luck. Ivan, we are very grateful for your honesty. You just need to lead the way and leave the rest to us. I already know about this matter. Do your best and leave it to fate. Xia Xingchen's open-minded attitude made Ivan feel a lot more at ease. Mr. Crossing, I wonder if you have people who are good at mechanical maintenance, especially those who are proficient in spacecraft maintenance. Ivan asked. Yes, we have the best spacecraft repairmen and mechanical engineers. Ivan nodded. That's the best. You'd better take such talents with you. Xia Xingchen thought for a while. Carlos, you come with us too. Anyway, your clone will take care of it on the spacecraft, so nothing will happen. Okay, the items will be here soon. Just like that, there was another person with full body mechanical prosthesis in the team. Because the money was enough, the visa officer didn't even look at Carlos's documents and directly authorized them to pass. Several people brought a mobile freezer containing Kenichi Miyamoto. Under the leadership of Ivan, they boarded the space shuttle. After a flight of dozens of minutes, they landed in Novikovsk, the capital of Novikovo. After leaving the spaceport, Xia Xingchen and others were a little dumbfounded. Outside the modern spaceport was a desolate scene. Moreover, it looked chaotic and dilapidated. It didn't look like a city at all, but a slum. It was full of primitive buildings built by private individuals. Several tall buildings could be seen in the distance. They were the residences of government agencies and some rich people. It might be winter on this planet now. All the buildings are now covered with white snow, which looks very desolate. Chapter 541 Winging Ground Effect Vehicle. Xia Xingchen and others arrived at Novikovsk, the capital of Novikovo. When they walked out of the spaceport, they found that this was a backward and barren planet. Ivan, what should we do next? Xia Xingchen asked. Ivan said, first of all, we have to find a place to stay and settle your companions. We can't take your companions around. It's icy and snowy here, and it will be very inconvenient if something happens. Then, we need to rent a car to go to the beach. I can contact a large car here, and the rental fee is 20,000 star coins per day. The driver is my friend. He has superb skills, and I trust his character. Of course, if you think it is expensive, you can find a car yourself. But I have to remind you that many star pirates often pretend to be drivers to rob. Xia Xingchen interrupted him again. Ivan, I'll listen to you. Since we chose you, we will choose to trust you. You arrange the car. It's just that I don't understand. As far as I know, Jiuli City is on an island. How can we buy a vehicle to get there? Ivan explained. Mr. Axing, you don't know. Novikovo is a planet with more than 85% of its area covered by ocean. There are 7 continents here, which are actually 7 islands. The city of Novikovsk where we are, is on the largest island. And Jiuli City is in the other hemisphere of the planet, on the smallest island. The temperature here is around -10 degrees all year round. In summer, the highest temperature on Novikovo is only 10 degrees Celsius. So the oceans of this planet are in an extremely unstable semi-frozen state most of the time. In this case, it is difficult for ships to reach another continent safely. There are countless icebergs and ice fields that will cause damage and obstacles to ships. Another headache is the geomagnetic environment of Novikovo. The magnetic field here is very unstable, which makes it difficult for those small maglev cars and aircraft to cope with the extremely complex magnetic field environment and cause accidents. Only those luxurious large maglev aircraft can work normally. Unfortunately, this thing is too expensive and the number of vehicles is very small, so we can't count on this kind of transportation. But this is not the most pitfall. The atmospheric conditions of Novikovo are the most troublesome. The atmospheric circulation on land is relatively stable, but the atmospheric circulation over the entire ocean is a mess, and the sky often encounters a 12-level gale. With strong winds, abundant water vapor and low temperatures, the aircraft will soon be frozen by ice. Under such natural conditions, it is difficult for ordinary civilian aircraft to fly in the wind. Even mechas find it difficult to fly normally. So the only means of transportation we can choose to cross the continents is a ground effect wing aircraft. Hearing this name, except for Xia Xingchen, everyone else was stunned. They didn't know what this thing was. Xia Xingchen had seen the information about this thing in the military academy. Soon, Carlos passed the information about the ground effect wing aircraft to everyone. The ground effect vehicle, also known as the ground effect wing aircraft, is an aircraft that uses the wing to ground effect to fly. The ground effect vehicle mainly flies in the ground effect area, that is, it flies close to the ground or water surface. In addition to the lift generated by the wings and fuselage, the ground effect vehicle can also generate an upward force between the wings and the ground or water surface. This force can easily lift the aircraft off the ground or water surface. The resistance encountered by the ground effect vehicle during flight is much smaller than the resistance encountered by a ship sailing in the water, so its speed is also much faster. A ground effect vehicle is a new type of high-speed aircraft between airplanes, ships and hovercraft. Unlike ordinary airplanes, ground effect vehicles mainly fly in the ground effect zone. That is, they fly close to the ground and water surface, while airplanes mainly fly outside the ground effect zone. Unlike hovercraft generates air cushions by its own power, while ground effect vehicles generate air cushions by ground effect. When a moving aircraft flies close to the ground or water surface, the airflow will flow backward and downward after passing through the wing. At this time, the ground or water surface will generate a reaction force. When it flies at a height equal to or less than 1/2 of the wingspan from the water surface, the upper and lower pressure difference of the entire body increases, the lift will increase sharply, and the drag will decrease, preventing the aircraft wing from falling. This physical phenomenon, that can reduce the induced drag of the aircraft and obtain a higher lift-to-drag ratio than flying in the air, is called ground effect by scientists, and thus opened up ground effect flight technology. The theoretical core of ground effect vehicles lies in the special phenomenon of ground effect. When the aircraft flies very close to the ground, its lift will suddenly become much larger than normal. According to general rules, to utilize the extra lift brought by the ground effect, the flight altitude of the aircraft cannot exceed half of the wing length. Wing-in-ground aircraft have fast speed, large carrying capacity, good stealth effect, excellent airworthiness, can fly close to the ground or sea surface, desert or swamp surface, can use the radar blind spot, quietly and quickly approach the target, used for assault landing, can easily cross the shore anti-landing obstacles and mines. Its flight speed even exceeds that of helicopters and magnetic levitation aircraft, and its endurance is also very good. This aircraft began to be developed in the former Soviet Union in the 1950s of the Earth era. After decades of research, the technology has become very mature. The most famous of them is the Caspian Monster. The Caspian Monster is a ground effect aircraft designed by the former Soviet Union Alexeyev Central Design Bureau using wing-to-ground effect. It is 106.1 meters, 348 feet long, with a wingspan of 40 meters, 131 feet, a takeoff weight of 495 tons, and 8 VD7 turbojet engines on the wings. The Caspian Monster has a range of 7,500 kilometers and can transport 850 soldiers to all parts of the world at a speed of 800 kilometers per hour without being detected by any radar. The Caspian Monster ground effect vehicle has powerful attack firepower and is equipped with 6 SSN-22 Sandfly supersonic anti-ship missiles. The appearance of such a weapon frightened the whole world. Later, due to the disintegration of the Soviet Union, it was not equipped in large quantities, but its appearance would make people feel frightened, so the Caspian Monster got its name. For many years after humans entered the space age, ground effect vehicles have been in use, especially on planets with vast ice fields and oceans on the surface. This is an economical and very effective means of transportation. It was not until the rapid development of magnetic levitation technology that ground effect vehicles were eliminated. Who would have thought that here, this antique level means of transportation would be seen again. Chapter 542 Pigs and Bearing Hotel. Led by Ivan, the guide of Novikovo, Xingchen and his companions plan to buy a ground effect wing aircraft. The reason for buying instead of renting is that the labor cost here is not low, and many guys who rent ground effect wing aircraft are robbers themselves. God knows where they will sell you. Not long after, a large truck engine roared over. This 13-meter long box truck has been modified. The front wheels of the truck are solid and very large, and the wheels are wrapped with spiked anti-skid chains. The rear wheels of the truck are crawler tracks, which are the only way to be suitable for ice and snow roads. The cab of the truck is connected to the rear compartment. In front of the car is a special sharp shovel with the blade facing outward, which can shovel all obstacles encountered to the sides. In a moment, the car was in front of them, the door was opened, and a big man with a red nose got out of the cab. He was holding a bottle of vodka in his hand. His eyes were confused, and it seemed that he had drunk a lot. Mr. Crossing, Mr. Let me introduce you. This is Dagao, a very good driver. Ah, hello, welcome to my sled. Dagao greeted them. Since he still had vodka in his hand, he did not shake hands. As soon as he opened his mouth, a deadly burp came out, almost choking Xia Xingchen and the others. Ivan looked very embarrassed. He had just boasted to Xia Xingchen and the others about how good Ivan's driving skills were. Who knew that this guy would do such a thing, which simply made him lose face. That's okay, Dagao is just a drinker. He won't drive. If he doesn't drink, it won't delay your trip. He hurriedly defended Dagao. But I'm worried about our safety. Letting such a person drive is really irresponsible for our lives. Xia Xingchen said helplessly. Keelan also interrupted. Also, what kind of wine is he drinking? Judging from his condition, this wine is either pure alcohol with a high concentration, or mixed with methanol. It won't damage his brain, will it? Ivan's face turned even redder, because Keelan might be right. Judging from the packaging of the bottle, it was not a real vodka. Vodka is the traditional alcoholic beverage of Russians on Earth. Vodka is made from grains or potatoes, and is distilled into an alcohol content of up to 95 degrees, then diluted to 40 to 60 degrees with distilled water, and filtered with activated carbon, making the wine have a fiery stimulation, forming the unique characteristics of vodka. However, this nation, who loves wine by nature, is not satisfied with low alcohol wine. The alcohol content of the vodka they drink even reaches 80 degrees. Later, due to political changes, the country also fell into decline, but the people of this country cannot be stopped from loving wine. In order to drink, they even mixed medical alcohol directly into wine and drank it, and even drank antifreeze, shoe polish, and perfume containing alcohol to relieve their cravings. Most people in the Northern Empire are descendants of the Russian nation on Earth. This nation has experienced thousands of years of development and has almost evolved into a nation that relies on alcohol. Even in the space age, facing a very harsh living environment, they cannot get rid of their dependence on alcohol. For them, they can have no money, no property, or even no food, but they cannot live without alcohol. That, I promise, the big dog won't delay things. Don't worry, I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat. If something goes wrong, I'll die first. Seeing Ivan say such a cruel word, Xia Xingchen was embarrassed to say anything. The rear door of the car opened, and two iron plates extended from it. Everyone moved the mobile freezer in together. Unexpectedly, although the car looked very rough and even a little shabby on the outside, the facilities inside were very new. The air conditioner in the car was on, and the temperature in the car was very comfortable. To everyone's surprise, the drunken Dagao placed the bottle on a special bottle holder on the center console of the vehicle, stepped on the accelerator, and the car rushed out with a roar. When his hands touched the steering wheel, he seemed to be a different person, with a completely different temperament. He seemed to be integrated with the car. After special modification, the car with 3 engines was full of power. It did not slip at all on the icy road. The speed reached 70 to 80 km per hour. Xia Xingchen and others actually felt a push on their backs. For a moment, everyone was amazed. Ivan, where are we going now? Keelan asked. Ivan sat in the co-pilot seat, and Xia Xingchen and others sat behind him. Ivan turned around and said, let's go to the beach. Only there can you buy a winging ground effect aircraft. Then we also need to conduct a comprehensive inspection, maintenance, and modification of the machine. That's why I asked you to bring a mechanic. Our journey will probably take more than 10 hours. Don't worry. Big Dog and I have walked this road hundreds of times. I will call you when we get there. Xia Xingchen was helpless. He didn't like the feeling of entrusting his life safety to someone else's hands. 10 hours in such a small space is very long. It got dark quickly, and no one would know how much time had passed if they didn't look at the timer. Until Ivan reminded everyone that they had arrived at their destination. Everyone walked out of the car. It was pitch black outside, and snowflakes were floating in the sky. Xia Xingchen and others got out of the car pushing a mobile refrigerator. The searchlight on Carlos lit up, but it was still not very clear. Only Xia Xingchen saw the scene in front of him through his insight skills. This is a circular building more than 10 meters high, with a diameter of about 70 or 80 meters. The outside of the building has been covered with ice and snow. Only the snow at the main entrance has been cleared. There is a heavy alloy door, and above the door is a large neon sign that reads Pig and Bearing Hotel. Everyone came to the door, and a camera under the eaves of the door flashed red and pointed at everyone. Ivan walked over and stretched out his hand to the camera. Not long after, the door opened and everyone walked into the building. This is a hall of more than 50 square meters. At the end of the hall is a bar. The author of the bar is an old white woman in her 50s. She has a face full of fat, and the fat squeezes her eyes. The waistline is nearly 1 meter in diameter, and her arms are thicker than Xia Xingchen's thighs. Ivan, you stinky hooligan, it's already past midnight and we're closed. Damn it, you interrupted my interest in tasting fine wine. I shouldn't have been soft-hearted and opened the door, letting you freeze to death outside. The old woman was very unhappy. She put down the big beer glass in her hand and said viciously, Fokova, I brought you business. There are quite a few people here. Hurry up and entertain the guests. Chapter 543, Brutal Fokova. Ivan led Xia Xingchen and his group to the seaside of Novikovsk, the capital of Novikovo, and they came to the Pig and Bearing Hotel. Fokova struggled to stand up from behind the bar. Everyone saw that the woman was over 1.8 meters tall and weighed about 400 kilograms. Her butt was almost stuck in the chair. When she stood up, the alloy chair under her made a harsh sound, and it seemed that it was already overwhelmed. Fokova handed Xia Xingchen a leather book. The book was very thick, and it introduced the rooms and charging standards of the Pig and Bearing Hotel with pictures and texts. Xia Xingchen and others felt very novel about this, as if they had traveled back to the Earth 2000 years ago. When they opened the book, they found that the charges here were very low, so low that it was incredible. Xia Xingchen and others had just gone to Gemini not long ago, and such high charges there were no pressure for them, not to mention the remote and desolate Novikovo. Here, a standard double room with complete facilities only costs 500 star coins per day. This is simply unimaginable in the Northern Empire, where inflation is very serious. In other parts of the Northern Empire, after the Northern Empire declared war on the Galactic Empire, prices rose by at least 3 times, while here they rose by less than double. This is also related to the remote location of Novikovo and its backward and closed economy. A backward and closed economy has a strong ability to resist external economic shocks. Is this presidential suite still available? Xia Xingchen said, pointing to the introduction on the leather notebook. Fokova was delighted to hear this. When she was building the Pig and Bearing Hotel, her husband, who had died 5 years ago, insisted on having a presidential suite. He said that this would improve the grade of the hotel. The result was far from their expectations. From the time the hotel was built to now, the presidential suite has only been visited a few times. Fokova even thought of turning them back into ordinary guest rooms. But then her husband died, and this guest room actually became a memorial in her heart. Fokova was delighted to hear that Xia Xingchen and others were interested in the presidential room. The economic situation in the Northern Empire was getting worse and worse, and the money these explorers had was pitifully little. Now this was undoubtedly a small fortune for her. Yes, the presidential suite has 6 rooms, as well as a conference room, a chess and card room and a private cinema. It's not expensive at all, only 8,000 star coins a night, and privacy and security can be guaranteed. Fokova excitedly promoted the presidential suite to Xia Xingchen and others. Xia Xingchen thought that there was a man named Kenichi Miyamoto among them whose life and death was uncertain, and he really needed a safe and private space, so he immediately decided, okay, I'll take the presidential suite and stay for 2 days first. Then he turned around and said, Ivan, what about you and Dagao? How about we live together? Ivan shook his head hurriedly. Mr. Crossing, Dagao and I both have accommodation here. Dagao drank a lot today. His snoring at night was like a sonic boom. Sometimes he might get drunk and go crazy. Let's not do that. Xia Xingchen nodded. Well, Ms. Fokova, please give Dagao and Ivan a standard room each. The room fee will be charged to my account. As you wish, kind sir. This is the first time I've seen someone willing to pay for them, especially for the drunkard Dagao. You are such a generous and kind person. Fokova said, taking out a few bunches of keys from the counter. Yes, it was a primitive device like keys, not room cards. She walked in front, her 2 thick legs like elephant legs making a thumping sound on the solid wood floor. Everyone followed Fokova through a hall, which was surrounded by doors with words such as guest rooms, restaurants, bars, and baths written on them. At this time, 2 people dressed in mercenary clothes came out of the bar, smelling of alcohol. Both of them walked a little unsteadily, and their eyes could not be opened. It seemed that they had drunk a lot. The two looked up and saw Nina and Elisa in the team. Hey, there are beauties. Although Nina and Elisa had been made up, the nature of girls made them very beautiful, even after changing their faces. Besides, these mercenaries had not seen women for a long time. Although there were several fallen women in the pig and bearing hotel who were engaged in the flesh trade, there were too many wolves and too little meat. The two guys didn't grab a woman and wanted to come out of the bar to take a breath. As a result, they saw Xia Xingchen and others. For a moment, they were horny and rushed up without thinking about the consequences, wanting to touch Nina and Elisa. Suddenly, the two felt a wall in front of them. Looking up, they saw Volkova standing in front of them like an angry hippo. She shouted "Get out!" and stretched out her palm, the size of a palm fan, and slapped the two men in the face. The two mercenaries were not bad in figure, but in front of this woman, they were blown away like inflatable dolls, flying 5 or 6 meters away. One of them fell on a table, smashing the table and the chair next to it. The other was blown away and hit the wall. The whole person actually knocked down a wall made of hollow bricks and embedded himself in the wall. Oh my god, humans are so terrible. Their fighting power is comparable to that of thunder beasts. Terumi people, Yangma, said to her boyfriend Yugo in surprise. She has always believed that most humans are weak except for Xia Xingchen and a few others. But the scene in front of her made her change her view of humans. Well done. This is how you have to deal with these dead perverts and stinky men. Elisa jumped up excitedly. However, Xia Xingchen and the others were all shocked by this. The little girl's words were a big blow to everyone. Seeing everyone's shock, Ivan explained, Volkova and her husband are both powerful warriors. When they were young, they were a very famous mercenary group with explosive combat power. Later, her husband was injured, and the couple retired and brought their men here to open the Pig and Bearing Hotel. That, her husband is also a very powerful mechanic, nicknamed Bearing. So that's it. Everyone suddenly realized. Chapter 544 Bad News. In the Pig and Bearing Hotel on the seashore of Novokovsk, the capital of Novokovostar in the Baikal administrative region of the Northern Empire. The proprietress Volkova was about to take Xia Xingchen, Nina and others to their presidential suite, when suddenly two drunkards rushed out of the hotel bar and tried to tease Nina and Elisa. As a result, the two guys were slapped by the furious proprietress and flew away. Her thunderous shouting startled many people, and soon, 4 hotel staff members rushed over with shotguns. Many people who were drinking in the bar also ran out to watch the fun. Volkova pointed at the two people on the ground with her hand domineeringly. These two drunk bastards dared to molest my guests. You should know that this Pig and Bearing Hotel is my territory. You have to abide by the rules here. If you don't know how to abide by the rules, I will teach you how to abide by the rules. Throw these two drunkards to the hall to freeze for a while, so that they can sober up. As for the losses they caused, let their mercenary group compensate. If they dare not compensate, I will sit on them to death. Suddenly, the hall was silent, and everyone was shocked by this domineering scene. They didn't even know what to say. Even the mercenary leaders of the two drunkards didn't dare to express any dissatisfaction. Damn, this is simply a ferocious human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Their small mercenary group can't afford to provoke it. They can only pay the money honestly, otherwise there is a real danger of being wiped out. Volkova's bucket waist and Milston-like buttocks, being sat on will really kill people. Others looked at the scene in front of them with gloating eyes. The group went up to the 3rd floor, which was a separate floor. The presidential suite was here. There were 2 waiters and a security door at the door of the suite. It seemed that there should be no problem with safety. Volkova opened the door of the presidential suite. The lights came on automatically. The whole room was decorated magnificently and fully equipped. It was hard to imagine that there would be such a comfortable room on such a barren and backward planet. Xia Xingchen and others were very satisfied. At this time, Volkova turned around and said to Xia Xingchen and others, "Dear guests, since you are staying here, I have to tell you about the rules of our Pig and Bearing Hotel. As long as you stay in your own room, I guarantee your safety and no one can disturb you. However, there are 3 beautiful ladies in your team. You know, there are many guys with excess hormones living in my store, just like the 2 guys just now. If you go to restaurants, Bars and other public places, especially if you are outsiders, they will definitely cause trouble. So I suggest that you stay in the room and don't walk around so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. If you need to eat or something, you can call the waiter to let them bring it to you. You have the right to live in the presidential suite. Okay, Ms. Volkova, we got it. Xia Xingchen replied. I haven't finished yet. If you go to those public areas and cause conflicts, it doesn't matter. But you have to remember that the loser of the fight is responsible for compensating for all the losses caused by your fight. If you can't pay the compensation, then I'm sorry, I can only confiscate all your things and then strip you naked and drive you out. Xia Xingchen and others didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was a very unreasonable rule, but this was the characteristic of the northern land country. The fist is the biggest, the strong are respected, the winner is the king, and the weak are the prey of the strong. Volkova left, and the guide Ivan also took the big dog to their room. Xia Xingchen began to allocate rooms. Hugo and Mama, the couple, naturally had to occupy a room, and Alessa had no sense of security, so she pestered Nina to live with her. Nina was helpless, and looked at Xia Xingchen with a resentful look. There were 4 rooms left. Xia Xingchen, Kiel, Baum and Brunswick each occupied one, and Carlos, as usual, sat in the living room. There were also 2 robots here responsible for carrying the mobile freezer. There was no conversation for more than 10 hours, and Ivan came over, axing, ale, bad news. There is a blizzard outside. The wind force on the ground is level 12 or 13, and the roads outside are buried by the blizzard. We can't go on, there is no road at all. And with such a strong wind, the car will be easily overturned. Ivan's news was indeed not good news. How long will this blizzard last? About 2 to 3 days. Well, everyone, just have a good rest here. Xia Xingchen was helpless. Although he was anxious, he knew that human power could not compete with the power of nature, otherwise it would inevitably pay a painful price. At lunchtime, the waiter came up to ask Xia Xingchen and others where they wanted to eat. Xia Xingchen thought about it, and if Carlos was not counted, the 8 of them would be too crowded to eat in the restaurant of the presidential suite. So Xia Xingchen decided to take everyone to the restaurant to eat. As for the possibility of mercenaries causing trouble, such a thing was not within their consideration. People who could pose a threat to Xia Xingchen and others would not bother to cause trouble to Xia Xingchen in such a small place. The group came downstairs. There were not many people in the restaurant at this time. The weather outside was bad. The group drank too much last night. There were few people who had normal schedules. Volkova was not a good person. All the drunkards who blocked the way were thrown into the hall by the waiter. The temperature there was low, which helped them sober up. The dishes here were very monotonous. Barbecue, steak, bread, salt and cream soup, and each person had a small piece of lemon. Several people ate with relish, but the only thing that was unpleasant was that someone kept deliberately walking around them, looking at Nina and Elisa repeatedly with greedy eyes, and even Mama attracted a lot of malicious eyes. Facing these lechers, Elisa really couldn't stand it. Third brother, there are so many annoying flies, can you help me kill them? Elisa acted coquettishly to Brunswick. It's not that the little beauty has never encountered such disgusting people before, and her third brother Brunswick helped her solve them. Seeing the little beauty acting like a spoiled child, everyone was moved. But when they heard what she said, they suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. This little girl was a real little witch. Chapter 545 Beauty's Trouble. Brunswick nodded and launched his ultimate move, the Aura of Fear. For a moment, an invisible aura appeared in a radius of about 10 meters with Brunswick as the center. In this aura, except for Xia Xingchen and the others, as long as other people approached, they would feel a huge sense of crisis from the bottom of their hearts. This feeling made people feel like they were in hell, and all the hair on their bodies stood up, and the heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and some people even had cramps in their legs. The first reaction of everyone who was within the range of Brunswick's mental power attack was to escape from this terrible place immediately. So a strange scene appeared in the restaurant. Some people approached the table where Nina and the others were sitting with lustful or bad intentions, and then turned around and ran away in an instant, as if they had encountered some terrorist incident. Some people were scared to pee their pants, some had cramps in their legs, and some were even scared to the ground. Extreme fear can not only cause mental damage, but also cause adverse physiological reactions in the human body. Hey, third brother, your superpower seems to be more powerful, Elisa said excitedly. Brunswick nodded. Yes, Elisa, I followed the methods Xingchen said and focused on training the control of superpowers instead of sticking to the power of superpowers. Who knew that now not only the control of mental power has been greatly enhanced, but also the power of the fear aura has been greatly increased. Isn't your superpower the same? This shows that our method is correct. I think as long as we persist, there will be surprises. Elisa nodded in agreement. After eating and drinking, everyone was ready to go back to the room. At this time, more than a dozen people blocked their way. The leader was a small white man with a wretched look and dark circles under his eyes. At first glance, he was overindulged. Two people pointed at Xia Xingchen and said something to this young man. Xia Xingchen recognized that these two people were one of the harassers just now. These two people wanted to come over to chat, but before they got close, they were scared by the fear aura and their calves cramped. The two were reporting to their master at this time. The white youth was called Little Hoover. His father, Old Hoover, was the leader of the famous coastal gang Jinghe of this generation. This gang had 300 or 400 members, more than a dozen ground effect wing aircraft, and an old Direwolf mecha. It was helpless. Novikovo was too poor. It was too luxurious to have an old universal mecha. Only those wealthy families and organizations had one or two, and most of them were poorly maintained. In comparison, the Jinghe was still a great local force. Everyone, my name is Little Hoover, you can call me Mr. Hoover. As for my identity, you should be able to see that I'm a great man. I have no other intentions in coming here, but I just want to invite two beautiful ladies to have afternoon tea and attend the party in the evening. Little Hoover looked sly. Brunswick wanted to smash his face with a punch. Our companions need to rest and cannot attend any party. They are not interested in your afternoon tea either. Xia Xingchen sternly refused. Strangers, don't you want to live? Here, our young master's words are the imperial decree. You just do what the young master says. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Before young Master Hoover could speak, his lackeys jumped out first. This was a good opportunity for them to take credit in front of their master. Keela looked at Xia Xingchen and said helplessly, what young Master Hoover? Have you heard of him? Xia Xingchen and others shook their heads. We came all the way from the distant galactic empire. I don't know how many pirate organizations we have destroyed along the way. What the hell is young Master Hoover? Keela's mouth was like a knife, merciless. Young Master Hoover couldn't hold his face. From childhood to adulthood, no one dared to talk to him like this. Don't be so arrogant. As the saying goes, a strong dragon cannot suppress a local snake. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to leave Novikovo? Come on, kill all the men and take the women away. Let's see who dares to act wild. A loud roar sounded like a Tyrannosaurus Rex roaring in my ears. The chandelier on the roof of the restaurant was shaking. Xia Xingchen and others were secretly shocked. If someone with a heart disease, this would really scare him to death. And the young Master Hoover on the opposite side was even worse. He sat on the ground with his buttocks, looking very embarrassed. Alessa and Nina laughed at this scene. Who is this bastard? Little Hoover got up angrily, and before he could say the word bastard, he swallowed it back. Because he had seen with his naked eyes the Forkover who was as big as a giant hippopotamus. Now the big hippopotamus was holding an alloy iron rod more than 1 meter long and more than 30 centimeters thick, and walked over aggressively. Behind her followed a group of waiters, holding shotguns, steel forks and other weapons. Judging from the movements and scars on these people, they are definitely experienced warriors. Hoover, you bastard, are you going to cause trouble again? This is the nth time. In my pig and bearing hotel, not to mention you, even your father has to behave himself. Have you forgotten the rules of my store? Volkova's loud voice is absolutely proportional to her size. At this time, Hoover was trembling, like a chicken facing a tiger. 2 years ago, when he led people to make trouble in the pig and bearing hotel for the first time, Volkova slapped him in the face and broke his cervical vertebrae. He almost died on the spot. Later, he was rescued in the biological treatment chamber for more than a month before he was saved. The despair and fear made him wake up from nightmares from time to time. What shocked him even more was that his father, old Hoover, not only did not avenge him, but also beat him up after he recovered from his illness, and personally took him to the door and made him kneel down to apologize to Volkova. It was at that time that the fearless little Hoover first learned the importance of awe. He learned from a painful experience that there are some people in this world that cannot be provoked. From then on, every time he came to the Pig and Bearing Hotel, he tried to avoid Volkova. There was no other way, as the Pig and Bearing Hotel was one of the few places nearby where one could have fun. Chapter 546, Pigs and the Rules of the Bearing Hotel. In the Pig and Bearing Hotel on Novokovostar, Baikal Administrative District, Northern Empire, Xia Xingchen and others who were about to return to their rooms after lunch were stopped by Little Hoover, the son of the local gang leader who coveted the beauty of Nina and Elisa. Little Hoover immediately ordered his lackeys to kill all the men of Xia Xingchen and others and take away the women. Hoover, what are you doing? At this moment, a thunderbolt sounded. Volkova arrived in time with her men. Her roar scared Hoover to sit on the ground. Hoover, have you forgotten the rules of our Pig and Bearing Hotel? Volkova looked at Hoover coldly. I dare not, Madam Volkova, I really dare not violate the rules of your store. Hoover's voice was a little trembling. Then tell me, what are the rules of my store? Volkova pulled her chair and sat in front of Hoover. No harassment of guests in non-public areas, no use of weapons in fights in the hotel, no killing, no. Hoover actually forgot for a moment due to excessive tension and fear. What's not allowed? Tell me. Volkova's eyes widened. No leaving body parts all over the floor. The loser must compensate for all losses. If you dare to violate it, you will die without a burial place. Hoover was startled, suddenly remembered, and said quickly, oh, I see you know the rules. Why do you still knowingly violate them? Hearing this, Hoover was so scared that he lost his soul and said tremblingly, I was just scaring them. My brothers are very disciplined. If you don't believe me, ask them. Little Hoover was very disloyal and put the blame on his subordinates. At this point, Little Hoover's subordinates immediately kowtowed like crazy. They often saw Volkova's furious scenes and knew how serious the consequences would be. If they had a choice, they would rather encounter an angry rhino on the plains than face the wrath of Volkova. Volkova looked at Xia Xingchen and others across from him and said, Hoover, this grandson has made the rules of our store very clear. Do you understand? Although you are staying in the presidential suite, the rules of my store are the same for every guest. Xia Xingchen bowed and saluted, with an attitude of neither servility nor overbearing, and her movements were as elegant as those of a nobleman. Ms. Volkova, we have heard it very clearly. Please rest assured that we will seriously abide by the rules of your store. Volkova had a very good impression of the polite young man in front of her. As the saying goes, people will die if compared to people, and goods will be thrown away if compared to goods. Compared with the handsome and polite Xia Xingchen, the little Hoover across from him is simply a human scum. Young man, it was too late last night, and I didn't have time to tell you the rules of the store in detail. Let's do this. You go upstairs. I'm here. They dare not act wild. Volkova nodded. She was kind-hearted. Letting Xia Xingchen go first was actually a kind of protection. Hey, this. Little Hoover was a little anxious. It seemed that the duck in hand was about to fly away. At this time, Volkova had woken up from her hangover. She glared at him with her big copper bell eyes. What? Do you still have any opinions? No opinions. Whatever you want. Little Hoover was completely scared. Xia Xingchen smiled, turned to the overbearing proprietress and said, Ms. Volkova, we appreciate your kindness, but you don't need to intervene in this matter. We can solve it. My partners and I are not soft persimmons that anyone can pinch, let alone turtles. Volkova shook her head. Hey, young people nowadays really don't know the height of the world. There was a hint of regret in her tone. She felt sorry for Xia Xingchen and the others. After all, they were alone and weak. Volkova helped them find a way out, but no one appreciated it. At this time, the very depressed little Hoover became energetic. Brothers, come on, just pay attention to the rules of the store. Okay, boss. Understood, boss. Watch me break their arms. Brother, after playing with these two girls, let the brothers have some fun too. These dozen lackeys became energetic and rushed towards Xia Xingchen and the others, howling. Although the Novikavo people are brave and aggressive, with burly build, and these dozen people are good mercenaries, this is only compared to ordinary people. In Xia Xingchen's eyes, these people are ants. You go, Yangma, I leave it to the two of you. Just break their limbs, but don't break the rules of the store. Xia Xingchen said lightly. The reason why Xia Xingchen asked the two of them to take action was because these two people had excellent martial arts skills and they knew when to attack. If Alyssa Baum and the others were allowed to take action, there would be limbs everywhere and blood flowing like a river. The two Terami warriors didn't even do any warm-up and rushed towards the thugs. A series of screams rang out. After dozens of seconds, none of Little Hoover's men could stand, and they were lying all over the ground. Everyone's limbs were broken, and some even had all 5 limbs broken. They are too weak. Yangma's concluding remarks explained everything very well. At this time, Little Free was sitting on the ground, holding his stomach and wailing. Yangma kicked him, and he flew away. His limbs had not been broken in time. Xia Xingchen motioned to Yugo to bring him over. Yugo grabbed Little Hoover's collar and lifted him up high with one hand. Xia Xingchen was not polite at all. He slapped him left and right with both hands. Soon, there was not a single tooth left in his mouth. His face was swollen like a pig's head, and even his eyes were blocked by blood. Xia Xingchen did this for a purpose. During the time he was slapping him, Carlos invaded into Little Hoover's personal terminal through the special personal terminal on Xia Xingchen's wrist and easily broke through the firewall. Xia Xingchen looked at the dying Little Hoover. What, do you still want to kill us? Do you still want to steal our girls? Little Hoover muttered. But his face was so swollen that he couldn't speak, and he had no teeth, and blood was gushing out of his mouth. What? I can't hear what you said. It seems that you are not convinced. Then I will continue. Xia Xingchen said lightly. Woo. Little Hoover actually whimpered like a dog. His body twisted desperately and trembled. Remember, there are some people you can't afford to mess with. Xia Xingchen's mouth cracked, revealing a cold smile, and patted his face and said. After hearing what Xia Xingchen said, Little Hoover nodded desperately. Xia Xingchen waved his hand, and Yugo raised his arm and swung it, throwing him more than 10 meters away. This smashed 2 solid wood chairs, accompanied by the sound of broken arms and legs. At this time, Volkova had not walked far. Everything in front of her made her eyes brighten. It seems that this young man is really extraordinary. Xia Xingchen looked at the bloodstains on the ground, politely performed the etiquette of aristocrats, and showed sincere apologies on her face. Boss lady, I'm sorry to trouble you. No trouble, no trouble. On the contrary, it's you who are in trouble. The father of this Little Hoover is the leader of a large gang. He loves his son the most. You should make plans early. Volkova reminded kindly. You have a heart. We will consider it. Xia Xingchen raised his head and led everyone back to his room. Xingchen, let's. Keela was about to say something when he was interrupted by Xia Xingchen. I understand. We need to cut the grass at its roots. Carlos has already hacked into that kid's personal terminal. We are safe in the hotel, and even if they want to attack us, they will have to wait a few days. Let's rest now and gather our strength, and when it gets dark, we will take action immediately. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547 Revenge and Rooting Out. Xia Xingchen and others beat up Little Hoover and others, and they returned to their presidential suite to discuss the action plan to eradicate the root of the problem. Not many people participated in this action. Keela, Xia Xingchen and Hugo were enough. Carlos was responsible for intelligence support. At this time, someone rang the doorbell outside. Hugo walked over to open the door and found Ivan, who looked anxious. Mr. Crossing, you are too impulsive. Do you know who you have offended? The gangster power of Little Hoover's family is very strong. If they are targeting you, you will be unable to move. How can you be so impulsive? Well, go on. Xia Xingchen looked at him teasingly. Ivan didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Xia Xingchen's reaction. Mr. Crossing, it seems that you have not yet understood the seriousness of this matter. The father of the little Hoover, the old Hoover, is a cruel man. But this man dotes on his son very much. Little Hoover was beaten by you, and dozens of his men were injured. He will not give up. I know, so we will not give up either. Then let's fight until we die. Xia Xingchen's words pushed Ivan back. He continued, Mr. Ivan, I know your concerns, and you are afraid of being implicated by us. I will tell you a plan. Do you think it is good? Ivan's face turned red when Xia Xingchen's words hit what he was thinking. Xia Xingchen said calmly, we are not afraid of Voltfree and his gang. As for what we will do, it is kept secret for now. Even if old Hoover wants to take action now, he has to wait until the snow stops in 2 or 3 days. He dare not go wild in the Pig and Bearing Hotel. In the next 2 days, you and Big Dog will keep your distance from us. Of course, we will pay for your guide fees and car fares. Don't rush to change your plan. After 2 days, when we have completed our countermeasures, you can make your decision. It is up to you whether to leave or stay at that time. Ivan carefully considered the plan mentioned by Xia Xingchen and could not find any faults. Xia Xingchen did not want to lose such an excellent guide as Ivan, so he gave him a reassurance. For Ivan, he could get the money for free, and the initiative of whether to leave or stay was in his hands. There was no better plan than this. Old Hoover was furious when he learned that his son had been beaten. He hurriedly dispatched more than 300 people, dozens of vehicles, a large number of snow removal machines, and even used engineering mechas. They braved the wind and snow all the way and dug a 3-kilometer road from the Hoover Villa to the Pig and Bearing Hotel. The journey was extremely difficult. Hundreds of people suffered varying degrees of frostbite and abrasions, and one person died. This unlucky guy followed closely behind an engineering mecha that was removing snow and was lazy. Who knew that the engineering mecha slipped and fell on its back? This unlucky guy was smashed into a meat pie and was firmly frozen on the ground. He couldn't even shovel it up with a shovel. But at this time, old Hoover's eyes were red. His son was his lifeblood. He usually didn't want to beat or scold him. This time, he received a notice from the hotel saying that his son was almost beaten to death. Such a thing was unbearable. When the door of the hotel was opened, the scene in front of him made him even more furious. The people lying in the empty hall were all his men, and the one covered in blood was his son. He could no longer recognize little Hoover, whose face had been beaten into a pig's head, and he was unconscious. He only found his son with the help of his men. The medical staff rushed little Hoover to the mobile biological treatment chamber for treatment, and others carried the dozen injured people to the car and transported them back to the headquarters of the Jinghe Society. Hoover was about to lead his men to continue rushing in when he suddenly saw a mountain of meat a few meters ahead. He broke out in a cold sweat and became much more sober. Hoover, have you had enough of living? Have you forgotten my rules? Isn't it good to be alive? The questioning voice was like a thunderclap, and old Hoover was trembling with fear. Sister Fokova, of course I haven't forgotten your rules. Don't worry, I'll leave now. Old Hoover secretly thanked himself for not being impulsive just now, otherwise he might have ended up even more miserable than his son. Wait, it's not that easy to leave. Settle the bill first. Your son's consumption here, as well as the losses caused by the fight, total 3 million star coins. Old Hoover almost spit out blood. 3 million star coins. This is definitely not a small amount in the Baron Novikova star. Even if they are gangsters, this money is not so easy to earn. He knew very well that he was cheated. How much loss the hotel suffered was entirely up to Volkova. Even if it was a table worth dozens of star coins, this old witch said it was worth 10,000 star coins, so he had to pay obediently. This was obviously blackmail. There was no way around it. Volkova was not only strong in personal combat power. At that time, the mercenary group of her husband and wife was not completely disbanded. Some members came to the Pig and Bearing Hotel to work as waiters, while others formed a team and became the largest local gang in Novikovsk. And this proprietress Volkova could even be said to be the emperor of the entire Novikovsk. Although she does not interfere in the affairs of the underworld, once someone messes with her, it is a death wish. Old Hoover took out a payment card from his arms with trembling hands and handed it to Volkova. The proprietress grabbed it unceremoniously and swiped the card to pay 3 million star coins and then threw the payment card to old Hoover. "Take all this garbage away. I want to drink." "Yes, we'll leave immediately." Old Hoover ran away with his men as if he had been pardoned. The headquarters of the Jinghehu, the gang on the Stanovikovo, is located 3 kilometers away. On the ground is a huge yard with various vehicles parked in the yard. On both sides of the yard are 2 5-story buildings where members of the Jinghehu live. The back half of the yard is a villa of considerable size. There are 2 basketball court-sized buildings underground in the villa. This is old Hoover's residence and the core of the Jinghehu. At this time, little Hoover had been stripped naked and thrown into the biological treatment chamber after a simple wound treatment. Then the medical staff began to treat other wounded people in a hurry. No one noticed that the personal terminal screen that was taken off from little Hoover's clothes suddenly lit up. A few minutes later, the intelligent defense system of the Jinghehu headquarters was firmly controlled by Carlos. Now, every move in the headquarters was exposed to Xia Xingchen and others. Xia Xingchen, Kiel, Hugo, Brunswick, Carlos and others watched the situation of the Jinghehu headquarters on the monitor on the wall with great interest. Chapter 548 Solving the Trouble. At this time, in the conference room of the Jinghehu headquarters, old Hoover was carefully asking the beaten lackeys with a group of Jinghehu senior officials about what happened. One of the lackeys secretly took a picture of Xia Xingchen and others with a personal terminal. Report to Lord Hoover, the young master was injured by these people. In fact, only the 2 Terami people did it. They were too strong. In just a few tens of seconds, all of us had our limbs broken. The lackey narrated the incident with snot and tears. Why did they beat the young master? Because the young master fell in love with those 2 girls and wanted to invite them to the party in the evening. Who knew that they cursed and beat people? The young master was so angry that he had a conflict with them. The lackey was embarrassed to say directly that your son was so bold that he wanted to rob the common people's girls and was beaten. So he said vaguely, "No one knows his son better than his father." Old Hoover knew very well what kind of character his son was. After listening to what the lackey said, he knew the truth of the matter. This was his son's death. He then asked, "Who are these people?" A small thug in charge of intelligence work in the Jinghe society stood up. "Lord Hoover, we have already inquired about it. They are a small group of adventurers. They came from the Galactic Empire to participate in the mission of finding a new wormhole. These people hired Ivan as a guide and came on a big dog's snowmobile. We didn't find any strong backers. The purpose of their coming this time should be to seek medical treatment. One of their companions was bitten by a poisonous snake. Someone saw 2 robots in their team carrying a movable refrigerator. We analyzed that they might want to ask Dr. He Yunlin for treatment." The words of the thug caused old Hoover to ponder. He was a cautious person. From the description of his subordinates, it can be seen that these people did not have any strong backers. They should be the type that can be easily pressed and rubbed in the hands. But old Hoover always had a feeling of uneasiness in his heart. This was a sense of crisis, and he couldn't tell what was wrong. He had been hesitating whether to take the risk to avenge his son or just let it go. Old Hoover was having a fierce ideological struggle in his heart. After a long time, he finally made up his mind. "Come here, send 4 snowmobiles to closely monitor the Pig and Bearing Hotel, and do not allow any means of transportation to leave the hotel." Old Hoover thought clearly that Xia Xingchen and his team could not leave until the snow stopped in 2 or 3 days at the earliest. And if they wanted to escape in advance, without means of transportation, it would be a dead end. So he sent people to monitor the hotel, and Xia Xingchen and his team would be unable to escape. In addition, everyone should be prepared for battle, check the vehicles, prepare weapons, and wait until the snow stops, and everyone will go out. Old Hoover finally made a decision. "Yes, Lord Hoover." Xia Xingchen and others watched the live broadcast, and when they saw the decision made by old Hoover, they laughed. "Xingchen, it seems that you guessed right. The night is long and dreams are many. Let's do it tonight," Keela suggested. "Okay, Ale. Carlos, prepare the action route and the blueprints of the Jinghehu headquarters. Ale, you prepare the action plan this time. Boom. Don't be idle either. Prepare some powerful fireworks for us." Okay, Xingchen, I will definitely prepare the most powerful fireworks for you. It is winter now. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the sky over Novikovsk is completely dark. The snowflakes in the sky make the visibility outside very low. It is 10 o'clock in the evening. At this time, there are no people in the lobby of the whole hotel. Most people are asleep. Only some drunkards in the bar are greedy for their drinks. At this time, 6 fully armed figures appeared in the lobby of the hotel. Through Colossus scan of the Jinghehu base, it was found that their base was very large and had many members. It was difficult to deal with it by sending Xia Xingchen and the other 3 alone. So they decided to take Baum, Brunswick and Carlos with them. The 3 girls stayed in their residence to continue to look after Miyamoto Kenichi. Volkova peeked out from the bar and found that it was Xia Xingchen and others. She smiled and said, "Guys, it's so late. Where are you going? Do you want to run away? In this kind of weather, don't even think about it. The car can't go far. You might as well come and have a drink with me." Xia Xingchen smiled faintly. "Good night, Ms. Volkova. We are not running away, but dealing with the trouble we have caused. Don't worry, everything will be different tomorrow morning. Please keep it a secret for me." Volkova raised his glass and drank it heartily. "Of course. Good luck to you, young man." The door of the Pig and Bearing Hotel opened, and the cold air of more than 40 degrees below zero hit them in the face. But fortunately, they have full body protective suits. This kind of protective suit can be used in an environment like space, and it is a piece of cake to use it to resist the cold air in such a place. Not far away, 4 medium-sized snowmobiles can be vaguely seen with dim lights on. These are the vehicles arranged by Old Hoover to monitor Xia Xingchen and others. However, under such low temperature and visibility conditions, the lights can hardly see anything, and things like infrared detectors have even their probes frozen. Each of these medium-sized snowmobiles can accommodate 6 members. But this time, because they have to stay in the ice and snow for 2 or 3 days, there are only 4 people in each car, and the rest of the space is for food, drinking water and a set of spare batteries. In car number 1, the 2 monitors were already asleep, and the other 2 were drinking and chatting. Damn it, in such weather, why can't they stay in the base to drink and play with women, while our brothers have to suffer like this here? A gangster complained, while taking a big gulp of vodka. Hey, it's that lustful young Master Hoover. He wanted to rob other people's women, just because they were beautiful. Now he hit a wall, and was almost beaten to death. He also made our brothers suffer. Another gangster was also very dissatisfied. Humph, this damn waste. I hope he will be beaten to death sooner or later. Ouch, I drank a little too much. I have to go out and get some water. Get out quickly. Go and come back quickly. It's more than 40 degrees below zero outside. Don't freeze your little brother to death. Watch my mouth shape. Get out. The drunk gangster put down the bottle of wine while cursing and laughing and opened the car door. Suddenly, a very biting cold wind blew into the car, freezing the other gangster. But his 2 companions were sleeping in sleeping bags and had no idea what was going on. Not long after, the car door opened again, and a man walked in from outside. "You're back, let's continue drinking." Chapter 549. Infiltrating the Jinghei Society headquarters. The door of the snowmobile that Jinghei was responsible for monitoring Xia Xingchen and the others was opened again. "You're back." The gangster who stayed in the car was drunk and didn't even raise his head. However, the answer was the sound of his own neck being twisted. Behind him was not the companion who went out to relieve himself, but Keeler, the great killer. The guy who went out to relieve himself met God before him. Then Keeler rushed to the 2 sleeping bags and did the same. The remaining 2 gangsters didn't even have time to press the alarm and were killed in their sleep. At this time, the other 3 cars outside also resolved the battle. The battle in those cars was easier. Carlos opened the central lock on the car door, and then everyone opened the car door and threw a special flash bomb with a glare effect and a quick acting anesthetic into it. This flash bomb was also Baum's masterpiece. It was a special effect in a small space like a car compartment. After a few seconds, there was no movement in the car. Xia Xingchen waved his hand, and several people got into the car and dragged the gangsters out of the car. They were all stripped of their coats. The powerful anesthetic in the flash bomb can make them sleep for 2 hours. And the severe cold outside at -40°C can freeze them into popsicles in 5 minutes. This is already a very merciful way to die. At least they did not suffer much pain. Under the guidance of Carlos, the 6 people took 3 sleds to the headquarters of the Jinghei Society. The winter on Novikavo Star is very bad. Even if you take a snowmobile, the 3-kilometer journey is extremely difficult. The 3 snowmobiles drove for half an hour before they reached the headquarters of the Jinghei Society. According to the original plan, Keela and I will directly attack the villa where Old Hoover is located, and the 4 of you will be responsible for blocking the 2 barracks of the Jinghei Society. No one will be left alive. I will command the operation, and Collis will be responsible for intelligence support. Understood. The 3-meter high courtyard wall was no pressure for Xia Xingchen and his men. The heavy snow outside the wall had piled up more than 2 meters high. Moreover, all the alarms, sensors, and cameras were almost completely ineffective in the snowstorm. The 6 people jumped into the yard as nimbly as cats. There were 4 sentry boxes in the yard, and the security guards inside were also drinking or napping. They were all very relieved that no force would dare to launch an attack in such weather. Xia Xingchen and Keela went straight to the backyard as soon as possible. The house intelligent defense system was used here, which brought them great convenience. When they walked to any door, the door would automatically open under Carlos' control. In the monitors in the control room, these people were like transparent people, and they would not appear on the monitor screen at all, nor would they trigger any alarms. This is the power of Carlos. Occasionally, there would be sporadic security personnel on symbolic patrols, and Keela and Xia Xingchen would easily kill them under Carlos' advance warning. The 2 came to the lobby of the villa and quickly cleared all the servants in the lobby silently. Old Hoover is on the 3rd floor underground. There is a special elevator in the master bedroom of the villa that goes directly there. I'll go down and take care of him. I'll leave the filter device of the ventilation system to you. Okay, Xingchen, I'll go to the kitchen first, connect the natural gas to the ventilation system, then remove the filter system and set the time bomb. You have 20 minutes to kill and evacuate. Start the timer. Keela went straight to the kitchen and found the main gas line. He used a sharp alloy knife to cut off several gas pipelines as thick as a child's arm, and then opened the gas supply valve to the maximum. A large amount of gas inside gushed out. After doing all this, he ran away without looking back. Carlos, close the kitchen and increase the output pressure of the gas. Keela ordered, and soon, the kitchen was filled with a large amount of methane gas. Methane is widely distributed in nature. Methane is the simplest organic matter and the main component of natural gas, biogas, pit gas, etc. The reserves of methane in the Milky Way are also very abundant. For example, methane exists in the atmosphere of planets such as Uranus. In addition, there are many gaseous planets like Jupiter in the entire Milky Way, and the methane reserves are also very rich. Moreover, in the universe, many comets also contain methane. The melting point of methane is -182.5°C. In some places in space, they exist in the form of solid combustible ice. On many planets in the Milky Way, these planets are far away from the stars and cannot fully utilize solar energy, so obtaining methane as fuel in outer space is a good choice. Novikavo is such a planet that uses methane as a civilian energy source on a large scale. Here, methane is widely used for heating, power generation and as a civilian fuel. In Novikovsk, there is a relatively developed underground methane transmission pipeline network. The headquarters of the Jinghei Society has a large number of gas-fired boilers, and there are also very large gas pipelines underground. Then, Keela took the elevator to the air conditioning room on the first underground floor, and tore off dozens of layers of filter membranes on the ventilation device, which would hinder the spread of gas. What made Keela happy was that the ventilation and heating systems of the 2 barracks shared a system with the villa. Originally, their plan was to kill Old Hoover and prevent others from rescuing him, but now, he changed his mind. For such scum, the best way is to kill them all. Xingchen, the plan has changed. You have 10 more minutes to evacuate. I plan to kill them all. Carlos, block all the doors and windows of the barracks. Turn off all the exhaust vents of the barracks. In addition, each barracks has a manual exit. Bomb will install the bomb. You are allowed to blow up the passage when necessary. Understood. Received. Everyone agreed and started to act separately. The third underground floor of the Jinghehu underground building is the location of the Jinghehu's treasure house in the vault. The long night is really hard to endure. In the lobby of the third underground floor, a waiter and 3 security personnel stood quietly in their positions, but they were absent-minded. No one would come at this time, and they still had to be on duty here. Inside the room, old Hoover had just fought with 2 beauties and was now sleeping like a dead pig. Ding. This was the sound of the elevator coming down, and the 4 people woke up in an instant. Who would take old Hoover's special elevator down in the middle of the night? Something was a bit abnormal. 2 of the security guards raised their weapons. The 4 of them, including the waitress, were mercenaries and were the best selected from the Jinghe society. They were well trained, specially selected and professionally trained to protect old Hoover's safety. The elevator door slowly opened, but when it just opened a fist-sized gap, 2 spherical objects were thrown out of the door. They exploded while they were still in the air, emitting a dazzling white light. Flash bomb. The guard shouted, and instinctively pulled the trigger of the rifle in his hand. The bullet drew a trajectory in the air and shot towards the elevator. At this time, Xia Xingchen, his body close to the ground like a cat, jumped out, holding a pistol in each hand, and pulling the trigger repeatedly. When he was in the elevator, he used his powerful inside skills to lock onto the movements of the 4 people in the hall. Xia Xingchen closed his eyes tightly, so the flash bomb did not cause him any trouble. 4 gunshots. 4 bullets. 4 dead bodies. Xia Xingchen blew away the white smoke from the muzzle of the gun, his face calm, and walked towards old Hoover's residence. Chapter 550 Another treasure house. The hall here is connected to a corridor, and there are rooms of various colors on both sides of the corridor. Since the door of the hall is very soundproof, Xia Xingchen's gunshot did not alarm the people in the house. He walked and searched each room with his inside skill. As long as he found a living person inside, he would open the door and take their lives. Although Xia Xingchen is not a bloodthirsty person, he knows the principle of eradicating evil. Moreover, now in the enemy-occupied area, there can be no womanly mercy. None of the people who can live in the Jinghehu headquarters are clean and innocent, so he has no psychological burden to kill. Soon, Xia Xingchen came to a wooden door according to Colossus' guidance. The 2 servants in front of the wooden door just wanted to get up, but they were shot down by Xia Xingchen one by one. Xia Xingchen used his inside skill to look and saw that there were 3 people sleeping soundly on a big bed behind the wooden door. Xia Xingchen raised his foot and kicked the door open and walked in swaggeringly. The light in the room is a sensor light which slowly brightens from weak to strong when it finds someone coming in. The naked man and 2 women on the bed were awakened. When they saw the gun in Xia Xingchen's hand, the man opened his mouth in fear, and the 2 women opened their mouths to scream. Puff. 2 soft sounds. 2 blood holes appeared on the foreheads of the 2 blonde beauties, and they fell on their backs on the bed, and blood splashed all over the men next to them. Xia Xingchen looked at the fat man in front of him. It's true that this naked and trembling man looked exactly like his son, Little Hoover. The only difference was that the man in front of him looked older and a little bald. Who are you? Old Hoover had not recovered from his fear. Although people like him were cruel and ruthless, they were most afraid of death. As long as they died, everything, power, and wealth would disappear. Xia Xingchen grinned, laughing very happily, even a little like a cunning little fox who stole the hen. Mr. Hoover, are you old and confused? This afternoon you were discussing how to retaliate against me, but you forgot about it so quickly. Do you have Alzheimer's disease? Sir, you misunderstood. I have no grudge against you in the past, so how could I retaliate against you? I didn't hold any meeting at all. Although he was surprised that Xia Xingchen knew about their meeting, old Hoover knew that he must not admit it. Once he admitted it, it would be very dangerous. Oh, so you mean I was wrong? Xia Xingchen tilted his head. Old Hoover quickly got up and said, brother, you must be mistaken. You can't believe this kind of hearsay. Someone is trying to kill someone with someone else's knife. Xia Xingchen looked at him teasingly. I don't really have any deep hatred with you, but I do have hatred with your son. He wants to steal my woman and instigates people to attack me. In addition, I know there is a gun under your pillow. I promise that if you move your hand a little bit back, it will not belong to you." This sentence scared old Hoover to death. There was indeed a gun under his pillow, and he did want to attack Xia Xingchen under the cover of the quilt, but he was discovered. He was naked in front of the enemy, which was not scary. What was scary was that the enemy seemed to be able to see through his heart. "You, get up, throw the quilt aside, kneel down, and put your hands behind your head." Facing the black muzzle of the gun, old Hoover had to lower his head. He wanted to stand up, but his legs were weak with fear. Xia Xingchen's face turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "I'm very angry. Your son provoked me, and you are trying to harm me and my friends. And I hate others to deceive me the most. Your behavior makes me very angry." "No, I didn't lie to you." Hoover refused to admit it and acted like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. Xia Xingchen was a little helpless, shook his head, and clicked a few times on his personal terminal. A dialogue appeared instantly. "Come here, send force now mobiles to closely monitor the pig in the Bearing Hotel, and no means of transportation are allowed to leave the hotel. In addition, everyone should be prepared for battle, check the vehicles, prepare weapons, and wait until the snow stops, and everyone will go out." Old Hoover was dumbfounded. This is impossible. Is there a spy? Now, we should settle the accounts. I didn't provoke you, but you actually provoked me. This is the price you should pay, Xia Xingchen said with a grin. Old Hoover was so frightened that he kowtowed at the head of the bed. A stream of liquid gushed out of his lower body, and the whole bed was wet. A fishy smell filled the room. "Please let me go, sir. I won't dare to do it again. As long as you let me go, I'm willing to give everything. I can take you to my treasure house now." Hoover was forced to compromise. Xia Xingchen laughed in his heart. He had been threatening Hoover for a long time just for this. But his face did not change, still cold, and pointed the gun in his hand. "Lead the way. Sir, I can only take you if you let me go, otherwise I will lose both my money and my life." Hoover rolled his eyes and whispered, "You have no room for bargaining now. Either you die now, or you choose to believe in my character," Xia Xingchen said sternly. This old Hoover is a treacherous old fox, but he met Xia Xingchen, a hunter who would not eat soft or hard. He hesitated for a moment, and quickly made a choice. Okay, you must keep your word and don't shoot." Old Hoover got out of bed carefully. He wanted to get a piece of clothing to put on, but when he saw Xia Xingchen's gun, he suddenly felt annoyed. He took Xia Xingchen to a room next to the bedroom. The entire wall of the room was blocked by a thick curtain. Old Hoover walked up and slowly opened the curtain, revealing two large doors inside. There was a screen above the door, which looked like a fingerprint lock and a password lock. "This door requires my fingerprint and iris plus a password to open," Old Hoover explained, while walking towards the screen and slowly stretched out his hand. He explained it specifically because he was afraid that Xia Xingchen would shoot randomly. Xia Xingchen motioned him to go over. Old Hoover stretched out his right hand and slapped the screen. Suddenly, a thick semicircular glass cover fell from the roof in an instant, covering Old Hoover inside, and then the door of the room suddenly closed. "Ha ha ha ha, you bastard, you've been fooled. This time, I'll make sure you die without a burial place." Old Hoover, who was already in the glass case, waved his hands and cheered. He stretched out his hands and operated on the screen a few times, and suddenly dozens of guns stretched out from the ceiling of the room, aiming at Xia Xingchen. "You bastard, you didn't expect that you could do anything to me? This time, I'm going to kill you with my own hands. This feeling is so good." Old Hoover laughed crazily. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.